Good morning. I'd like to welcome everyone to our regularly scheduled town board meeting. For those of you who have never attended a meeting before, we will first have a public hearing, followed by an administrative calendar. There are meeting agendas available in the rear of the pavilion. If you wish to be heard on any matter, please fill out a slip, which you can obtain from one of our public safety officers. On the slip, please indicate what matter you'd like to be heard on. After the meeting is adjourned, the town board will follow our custom of 350 years and remain in session to hear any residents who would like to address the board on other matters. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilman Ambrosino?
Here.
Councilman Blakeman?
Here.
Councilman Diaz-Bazito?
I'm here.
Councilman Dunn?
Here.
Councilwoman King-Sweet?
Here.
Senior Councilwoman Goosby?
Here.
And Supervisor Gillen?
Here. I would now ask Councilman Ambrosino to please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Put your right hand over your heart and join me. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Stop.
Everyone, I would ask if you would just please stand again for one moment and observe a moment of silence. Our Commissioner DiMaria lost his wife tragically recently, and just have a moment of silence to remember her and think of his family. Commissioner, we are truly so sorry for your loss. Madam Clerk, will you please call the first public hearing?
Proposed local law regarding regulations and restrictions to limit parking in and near Liberty.
I have a slip from Felix Focaccia on this one.
Felix Focaccia, 1165 Bond Street, Franklin Square, New York. On this hearing and all the public hearings, including the administrative calendar resolutions, I feel it is necessary for the town board to add the following statement. Upon passing this law or any other law, the town board has the right to break any town, state, or federal law, provided a majority of this town board agrees to break the law. It is important to note that this position is supported by Councilman Dennis Dunn. The town board has supported this position by votes they have taken. At the town board meeting held on June 19, 2018, Councilman Dennis Dunn said, and I quote, "Sometimes you have to look at common sense as opposed to law regarding a vote on zoning change." He said this regarding the current resolution that would change the zoning property while violating the property rights of its owners. I ask that this statement be put on every resolution because it's apparent that the position of this town board is to violate the law, send people to court intentionally just to drum up legal fees for lawyers and just for political purposes. He said it, he was adamant about it, and everyone voted for illegal laws on this board. And I think that it just be transparent about it. Tell the people that we are above the law, because that's what the truth is. By your actions, that's what you tell the residents when you vote for illegal laws that have no basis. Thank you.
Mr. Town Attorney, so for public hearing number 1, it's about amending parking regulations and restrictions. Is there anything illegal about this change?
No. I wasn't talking about that. I was asking that a statement be put on that there's a. I am not talking about, as I said, I just want to be clear, to make sure everyone understands. You're passing laws. Some you abide by, some you choose not to abide by. And that's what has happened in the past. Each of these laws, most of them are abided by, but when it's politically expedient for you to break the law, this town board has broken the law. It is not for any particular resolution, it's for all the resolutions. Because this is what has happened in the past. In my next month will be 8 years being here, and when you choose to break the law with this town board, when there were different people here, it doesn't matter who the people were, the council people were, they have chosen to break the law and send people into court indefinitely because you have deep pockets and you can sustain it. That's what it's about. It's not about this resolution or that resolution. It's about the behavior of the town board. And this behavior of the town board is atrocious. What you're doing to so many people aren't isolated incidents. The majority you abide by the law, but when you decide when it's politically expedient to break the law, you do that. And that's why I chose to speak on the first hearing, because all these hearings should have a statement, a disclaimer saying that if you choose to break the law in the future, that's what we will do, because it's politically expedient to do so.
Thank you, Mr. Procacci. I appreciate your comments. I will say that I don't personally choose to break the law. But you don't say that you contend that there's anything illegal.
Nothing illegal about any of the laws.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who'd like to be heard on the first public hearing? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
I move that the public hearing be closed and the item be adopted.
Second. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilman Ambrosino. Councilman Blakeman.
Aye.
Councilman Diaz-Padrino.
Aye.
Councilman Dunn.
Aye.
Councilwoman King Sweeney. Senior Councilwoman Gooseby. Supervisor Gillen.
Aye. Madam Clerk, will you please call the next public hearing?
Proposed local law regarding parking or standing prohibitions in East Rockaway near Lynbrook, Oceanside, and Woodmere.
I do not have any slips on this public hearing. Is there anyone who'd like to be heard? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
I move that the public hearing be closed and the item adopted.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman Ambrosino. Councilman Blakeman.
Aye.
Councilman Diaz-Padrino.
Aye.
Councilman Dunn.
Aye.
Councilwoman King Sweeney. Senior Councilwoman Gooseby. Supervisor Gillen.
Aye. Madam Clerk, please call the next public hearing.
Proposed local law regarding arterial stops in Oceanside near Valley Stream.
I do not have any slips on this public hearing. Is there anyone who'd like to be heard? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
I move that the public hearing be closed and that the local law be adopted.
Second.
Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Councilman Ambrosino. Councilman Blakeman.
Aye.
Councilman Diaz-Padrino.
Aye.
Councilman Dunn.
Aye.
Councilwoman King Sweeney. Senior Councilwoman Gooseby. Supervisor Gillen.
Aye. Madam Clerk, please call our next public hearing.
Proposed local law regarding school speed limits in Belmar.
I do not have any slips on this public hearing. Is there anyone who'd like to be heard? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Supervisor, I move that the hearing be closed and the item adopted.
Second.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman Ambrosino. Councilman Blakeman.
Aye.
Councilman Diaz-Padrino. Councilman Dunn.
Aye.
Councilwoman King Sweeney.
Aye.
Senior Councilwoman Gooseby. Supervisor Gillen.
Aye. Madam Clerk, please call our next public hearing.
Proposed handicapped parking on public streets in Baldwin and Franklin Square.
I do not have any slips on this public hearing. Is there anyone who'd like to be heard? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Supervisor, I move that the hearing be closed and the item adopted.
Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilman Ambrosino. Councilman Blakeman.
Aye.
Councilman Diaz-Padrino.
Aye.
Councilman Dunn.
Aye.
Councilwoman King Sweeney.
Aye.
Senior Councilwoman Gooseby. Supervisor Gillen.
Aye. Madam Clerk, please call our next public hearing.
Application of 416 BCB Corp. for a permit to include existing gasoline service station within GSS district and install additional storage tanks, each with a capacity of 15,000 gallons, and install waste oil tanks, each with a capacity of 15,000 gallons, and operate a self-service and convenience store. Install 3 pump islands and canopy over said pump islands located at 940 Nassau Road in Uniondale.
Good morning, Supervisor, honorable members of the board. Kevin O'Brien from the firm of Murphy, Bartow, and O'Brien. Offices at 22 Jericho Turnpike, Mineola, New York. Here representing the property owner and the applicant. I have seated to my right Mr. Christopher Tartaglia, who is a principal PE from High Point Engineering, and they're the design professionals who prepared the plans, which are before the board today. I also have some representatives from the property owner and applicant as well. I'm glad to see that we have our electronic system working. And I just want to make one quick comment or observation. Last time I was here, the tulips were in full bloom, and they were fantastic. So they're gone. But now you got these white and pink things on the plaza as you come in. And whoever takes care of them, they are equally, if not more fantastic. So whoever's doing the work out there, doing a great job, kudos to them.
Thank you.
I'll take credit for it.
Okay, well, great job. I like the tie. I think the tie is terrific. You know, it says summer. It's got summer written all over it, so I like it. We're here today in connection with an application involving the existing gasoline service station located at 940 Nassau Road in Uniondale. It's on the corner of Nassau and Brookside, just a little bit north of the Southern State property. Just a couple little maybe housekeeping, a little corrections, because I know when I was speaking to some of the staff earlier on this, when I was doing a little bit of research, I was under the impression that this place has been operating since about 1960, but in doing a little bit more research, it's actually been operating as a service station since 1927. So this is an old one. One of the other things I just want to bring to the board's attention, the nature of the application is to include the property within the GSS zoning district. We're seeking to operate self-service, or at least have the ability to operate self-service and install a canopy over the pump islands. And the impetus a lot of times for some of these applications has come where we're making other improvements. And the board, the predecessors to the board in 1974, when the then presiding supervisor had sort of mandated the inclusion of these properties into the GSS zoning district, had sort of this amortization period. So whenever we make some substantial improvements, the property either has to be within the GSS zoning district or apply to get into it. So that's why we're here. The impetus, one of the impetus, was because the county changed the rules and regulations relative to underground gasoline storage tanks, where way back steel tanks were permitted, and there was single wall tanks were permitted, and then it became the requirement for double wall tanks. I bring this up because I did receive, a call from one of the neighbors when I was, dealing with the application, and that our application, part of it says that we're going to install 2 15,000 underground gasoline storage tanks, which when we made the application back, I think, about 2016, that was part of the application. The regulations are such that we have to install the tanks, if they're in for 30 years, they have to be replaced. So we went to the county and to the town, received permits and approval to do that aspect of the application. So I just want to make it clear to the board that we're not putting in an additional 2 15,000 underground gasoline storage tanks. That aspect of the application has already been accomplished through the county health department as well as through the town building department. So what's in there now is all in, it complies, but there was a little confusion on the outside. I just wanted to clarify that we're not adding any additional storage tanks. Well, physically what we are doing, the property, we're contiguous to a car wash, car center next, right behind us. What we're seeking to do, so those underground improvements have all been done. The pump islands, the 3 pump islands currently exist, so they're there to remain. So really the physical work that we're looking to do over at this location is really to install a canopy over those pump islands that have already been replaced, reconfigured with the underground gasoline storage tanks. So in order to do so, we're looking to be included into the GSS zoning district, have the ability to operate self-service, mindful of some of the requirements that typically what we do is we provide full service operation, particularly between the hours of 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. particularly for seniors and the elderly, but for those who are seeking it. And in order to accomplish that, usually at these locations, we have a blue button on the dispenser, so one can signal to somebody to kind of come out and dispense the motor fuel for that. Other than that, we've already replaced the asphalt and the like over there, so most of the improvements, other than maybe some little cosmetic improvements, have already been accomplished at this location. So we'd be seeking that inclusion into the GSS, the self-service operation. There's no repair of automobiles at this location. It's a retail mart in conjunction with this location. It's 24-hour operation. We're in close proximity to the Southern State Parkway, and even though we are principally surrounded by businesses, we're still mindful of our neighbors, whether they be business neighbors or a little bit further away, or residential neighbors. So we have private carding. We try to do that during reasonable hours. Our fuel deliveries, we typically try to accomplish off-peak hours, so that this way you don't want to have it around 6 o'clock, when you've got a lot of vehicles on the road, but you don't want to have it past 12 o'clock either.
Council, you said you're adding an awning over the pumps that are there now, right?
That is correct.
But the amount of pumps is staying the same?
That is
So
correct.
three individual islands, one on each side?
That's correct. Absolutely. Certainly.
Back of that gas station, there is a garage, and your cars up. Do you have anything to do with that? Is that yours?
No, that's a completely different piece of property. There's a garage back there with a car wash as well. There's a fence in between us, so we only have perhaps behind our building tops 10 feet behind us. So if you take a look at the site.
I know what it looks like. I've been there a couple of times. I just was very concerned about this garage in back of it. That I see some really good.
No, Stevie, Councilwoman, that we have nothing whatsoever to do with that.
All right, thank you.
And other than that, I'd like to tell you that we're doing a lot more, but that's really the sum and substance of our application. If there are any technical questions, Mr. Tartaglia, we'd be happy to field same. Otherwise, I'd just be, we'd respond to any interested observers that you might have.
Is there I don't see a flagpole, is there a flagpole? I can't see it in the site.
I don't believe there is a flagpole at the site.
It's a perfect location.
The only thing I see there, I'm concerned about some garage. You have to show me that. What are those?
I'm sorry, Senior Councilwoman, I
You
didn't
have
quite
some
get that.
drums back there. Are those containers?
In one of the photos, there's blue 55-gallon drums,
Yes.
unmarked containers.
Yes.
What are they there for?
As a matter of fact, I'll be perfectly honest with you, I'm not 100% sure, and what we did is we have, every now and then, when I've been over at the location a number of times, and I mean, we had a couple of TVs that were dropped off there. I guess we're just so accessible, people just drop stuff off. So we've contacted contractors to remove those. So that's in the process. We got rid of the TVs, we're just.
So I think the important question, so there's nothing being stored in those containers that's not marked?
Correct.
I think you could clean it up. You could clean that up.
I'll certainly bring that to the attention of the property owner. But when I was there, I thought it was a pretty good.
What is it?
Well, I'm not disagreeing with you, Councilman. Absolutely. So we'll certainly bring that to their attention.
I think the gas station itself is pretty small. So, the only thing I want you to do is make sure you do something as far as the food that you're serving inside. I understand you're not going to be preparing food. It's all
That's correct.
purchased already sealed and so forth.
That's correct.
And we keep the area clean.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's, I was there are trash cans right at the doors. They typically have some at the pump islands as well. And, I mean, we could look into the flagpole for the councilman over there to see, as long as, I think we're on 2 county roadways over there, so as long as we do have to go through the 239F process, as long as the county doesn't have an issue, I think that could be fine. Yeah?
We'll address it.
I'm sure you got everything corrected. There was some things you were doing without having approval, but that's taken care of.
Yeah, actually, I did notice there was a report from the building inspectors, and what's interesting about the process is You know, again, I'm this old and been doing this long, but, you know, back in the day when we used to file directly with the town clerk's office. Now we file building permit applications first, it goes through that process till we get a continuation letter enabling us to continue to the town board. So part of the things that we were cited for was having a open building permit for this very application. So it's just, you know, I mean, the process is, you know, we follow the process. Obviously, that building permit application can't be closed until such time as this board acts, and then we actually get a building permit, do the work, have it inspected, and then close it out. So that was part of one of the things that I did notice in there. It's just part of the process.
Okay, so in other words, if we just, you want to continue and make sure everything is okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Any questions for anyone else?
I do have a slip from Kevin O'Brien.
Oh, that's actually me.
There are two slips.
I think it's probably said enough. You had it.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I don't have any other slips on this public hearing. Is there anyone else who'd like to be heard? Yes, please come forward. And if you would please just state your name and address for the record.
My name is Heidi Sound. I'm the Vice President of No Spring Garden Civic Association in Uniondale. My address is 116 Florence Avenue in Hempstead. It's right on the border of Hempstead, excuse me, and Uniondale. I really didn't come for this particular reason, but in listening and looking at the diagram, I noticed that this gas station is on the corner of Nassau Road and Brookside. And I believe it's very close to the Martin Luther King Jr. Peace Park, am I right?
It's been there all the time.
It's right there, right? Okay.
It's across the street.
Across the street? Okay. Because the attorney who was just speaking, he mentioned how beautiful the flowers are here at the town of Hempstead's, building. I think it might be a nice thing for them to add beautification to that gas station area.
They do have this.
Okay, good. Okay, and the other thing I noticed, they're going to add a convenience store. They had that all wrong, because I was part of a group who cleaned that park on a weekly basis with other volunteers from our civic group and Hofstra University students. And the park is on and off, strewn with litter. So you have to ask yourself, where is that litter coming from? So I just think, sitting here, it might be nice if, let's put it this way, if they want more business, they might want to help to make the park look a little bit more attractive in honor of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. They're right across the street. And when you're so close to a park like that, if you want more business, you pay attention and you do the right thing. Thank you.
I do not have any other slips on this public hearing.
Peter J. Meredith, Baldwin resident. My question, okay, I'm glad that we are now able in the audience to get the audio visuals. It would be nice if we in the audience could also see the photos and things that you were all discussing, considering we're the ones who kind of live in this area and we kind of see that. So I appreciate the questions that were asked with regard to the dumping, because we have noticed that and we have tried to alert the police officers. So those types of questions we do appreciate. My concern has to do with, probably this is not a town situation, but I'm hoping that the town can work more in concert with the county with regard to the traffic that is incurred on that juncture. For those of us that live in the northern part of Baldwin, Brookside Avenue is a major thoroughfare for us, so we won't even talk about the plight of potholes on Brookside, particularly at that at that corner, because during that period when they were doing the work that the gentleman cited in his testimony, it was horrendous for the residents in that area. So I don't know, I'm not saying specifically it was their contractors or their vendors that were doing it, but the roads in both sides and also trying to get in and out for those who are going to that gas station and those who are trying to monitor getting across Brookside or making that turn, because when they changed the entrances to Southern State Parkway, you have to come down Brookside and go up the little street where that warehouse is sometimes to get there as a shortcut. So that is definitely a site for potential accidents. The section where Heidi, the previous speaker, mentioned on the other side of the Martin Luther King Park, again, people make an illegal turn off of Nassau Road into the other part of Brookside, or they run the light, or when they're running out of that gas station to beat the light, they're running across Nassau Road, and there have been a number of accidents in that section. So I'm just concerned about, again, with this diagram, how they're going to address the traffic flow coming in and coming out of their facility, or what they can do to be better residents in that area and encourage the county to do something about the roads, particularly on that section. So that's my...
I'd be happy to reach out to the county to see what we can do to address the traffic issues that you raised in that area, and also to follow up with you on in our highway department on the potholes.
Right, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else who'd like to be heard on this public hearing?
If I could just a couple of brief comments. I appreciate the woman from the Civic Association coming up. Love community involvement. I just had actually one of my clients recently join one of the associations, which I think it's good to have that sort of involvement, become a member. So I would ask them to reach out to us when you have one of your cleanups. You know, perhaps we can assist in providing bags, water, and if you've got personnel, so we'd like to be involved with that. And it's certainly with respect to the landscaping and the like, you know, we're going to look at whatever we can do to supplement. We usually do a pretty good job, I have to say. But my engineer over here, I know, can always take another look, so we'll take a look at that. And just responding to the comments on the traffic, the curb cuts and all are existing, the pump islands are existing. But as I did mention earlier, in order for us to finally get an actual building permit over here on the county roadway, it does get submitted to the County Department of Public Works pursuant to 239F of the General Municipal Law. So they will be looking at it as well, just as part of the process. So those, you know, there will be input from the county, but I do appreciate the supervisor's invitation on that regard as well. So thank you. I believe what we're looking for is necessary, reasonable, and we look for the board's favorable discretion. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation.
Okay.
Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll on public hearing number 6? I'm sorry. May I have a motion?
My motion is that we reserve decision.
Madam Clerk, will you call the roll on reserving decision?
Councilman Blakeman?
Aye.
Councilman Diaz-Bazito?
Aye.
Councilman Dunn?
Aye.
Councilwoman King Sweeney?
Aye.
Senior Councilwoman Boosby? Supervisor Gillen?
Aye.
If I could just submit to the town clerk, I did have some signatures in support of the application as well from community residents. Thank you. Thank you. Have a nice day.
Okay, Madam Clerk, will you please call the decision calendar?
Supervisor, there is one item on the decision calendar, which is the application of Beechwood Merrick LLC to rezone from Y Industrial District and X Business District to PUD District and include said lot within the adjacent southeast quadrant of the PUD District located at 695 Merrick Avenue, Westbury, west side of Merrick Avenue, 1,671 feet south of Privado Road.
have a motion on the decision?
I move the decision and go to approve it.
Second.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman Blakeman,
Aye.
Councilman Diaz-Bazito,
I'm not voting on that. I was not here for the original hearing.
Councilman Dunn,
Aye.
Councilwoman King Sweeney,
Aye.
Senior Councilwoman Gooseby, Supervisor Gillen.
Aye. Madam Clerk, will you please call the administrative calendar?
Supervisor, there are items 8 through 70 on the administrative calendar. I also have a resolution that is of an urgent or emergency nature. It is a resolution calling a public hearing to consider authorizing Town of Hempstead Sanitary District Number 6 to sell at auction surplus machinery and equipment. I also have a resolution repealing TDR 345 of 2017, also known as the Free Air Law. This will be item number 72 on the administrative calendar.
Supervisor, Madam Clerk, I also have a handout of the urgent emergency nature. Resolution is authorizing the town to retain Leventhal, Mulaney, and Winkhoff LLP to provide legal services. I move that this be item number 73 on the calendar.
Second.
Are there any council members who'd like to sever any of the items on the administrative calendar?
Yes, Supervisor, I would like to sever and postpone indefinitely items 32, 53, and 54. To be clear, we are adjourning them indefinitely.
32, 33.
32, 53, 54.
So we have a motion to adjourn and indefinitely postpone items 32, 53, and 54. Is there a second?
Second.
Madam Clerk, will you call the roll on adjourning these items?
Councilman Ambrosino, Councilman Blakeman,
Aye.
Councilman Diaz-Bazito, Councilman Dunn,
This one says. Aye.
Councilwoman King Sweeney, Senior Councilwoman Gooseby, Supervisor Gillen.
Aye.
Madam Clerk and Supervisor, I renew my motion, which is a resolution authorizing the town to retain Leventhal, Mulaney, and Winkhoff LLP to provide legal services. I move this item be number 73 on the calendar.
Second.
All right.
All right, Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll on this motion?
Councilman Ambrosino, Councilman Blakeman,
Aye.
Councilman Diaz-Bazito,
Aye.
Councilman Dunn,
Aye.
Councilwoman King Sweeney,
Aye.
Senior Councilwoman Gooseby,
All right, no.
Supervisor Gillen.
I vote no.
Just to put it on the calendar. We're not voting on that. Correct.
Correct, this one is on the calendar. We can go on the calendar, we can go on the calendar. All right, let it go on the calendar, we're not voting for it now. I'll change my vote. I can vote no. She wants to vote no, so I vote with her.
Okay.
I can do what I want to do, but I need to do for my district.
So the motion carried, yes? Motion carried, is added to the calendar.
Can we just get an outline of what the numbers are? So 71 is which? 76. 72. Repeal 73. That's it, right? No loss? All right.
So may I have a motion on the rest of the administrative calendar?
I move the administrative calendar with the exception of 32, 53, and 54.
Second.
All right, I have a number of slips on the administrative calendar, starting with Felix Bacacci.
First, Phil Procaccio, 165 Bond Street, Franklin Square, New York. First on that item 72 that was added, can I have an explanation of that?
The repeal of the free air law.
Repeal of the 301, but then do you need number 70?
The board is moving to, we've never enforced the free air law, and the board today is moving towards repealing that free air law, thus allowing coin-operated air machines in the town of Hempstead. There will be a public hearing on August 7th on the same matter. But by motion today, the board is evidencing its intent to repeal.
Okay, because number 70 addresses the issue that I spoke about earlier today.
Well, Mr. Procacci, so just so you understand what's going on, because I know it can be confusing. The board, if they approve this, will be repealing the change in the law so that the law goes back to what it was before it was changed. And at the same time, we're calling a public hearing to settle a lawsuit.
I get it. I got it.
Which requires a public hearing on that matter. But today, if it passes, we will be repealing the amendment and it will go back to the old law.
The problem with all this is brings up what I spoke about earlier today. I guess we'll call the Dunn rule, means that you can break the law anytime you want.
How are we breaking the law?
You are breaking the law because the public hearing that you're calling for on August 7th, number 70, still preempts state law. You are still regulating equipment and prices in zoning law, which you're not allowed to do. Or can you cite the passage in zoning law that in state, town, or any zoning law in New York State that allows a municipality to regulate prices? Can you cite that paragraph? Anything? You did the research on this before you came here.
On advice of counsel, we are calling a public hearing to consider the settlement of a lawsuit. But prior to that public hearing, I believe it's the public will of the board to repeal the amendment that was made and go back to the original law.
I get all that. I don't want to go in a circular thing here. The point is,
We are following the
the
law.
point is, the 1978 law preempted state law and was implemented in zoning, which was illegal. That was all illegal. Period. Now, listen.
We don't want to comment on that pending the lawsuit, so we're not going to comment.
Don't comment. Please don't comment at all, okay? You just confuse me when you comment. The problem is, you're breaking the law. Just take my word for it, because nobody will justify
I don't
this.
think we should repeal the law.
You should repeal the 1978 law and everything and not call this hearing. That's what you should do. Please don't comment anymore. Please don't. It's not my opinion, it's the law. This is the Dunn rule. We can violate the law anytime we want and throw people into court into indefinite because we have deeper pockets than you and we could litigate you to death.
I think they call it the Felix Law because I wasn't here in 1978.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying the Dunn rule means that you're allowed to break the law and sometimes you have to take common sense over the law. You said that, Dennis Dunn. Okay, let's get to the other things. On the items of 39 through 47, I can't speak to every park district, but you're essentially establishing fees for parks, for services and things like that. The problem with it is in most of these park districts, I know definitely in number 41 in mine, we don't have a budget. We have a $4 million lump of money. The only thing that's articulated in that in any reasonable way is the bond principal and interest that we are paying. That is it. The rest of the $3.5 million, the residents have absolutely no clue as to how you're spending our money. There's no clue at all. I foiled it. No records exist.
I understand your concerns, Mr. Pagacci, and I believe we have been discussing those concerns as well. With respect to that budget. With respect to just these resolutions, Commissioner Lino, you can correct me if I'm wrong, this is just reducing the fees of our parks for military service personnel. Excuse me? For active military. That's what all of these resolutions are about.
It should be more specific, but anyway, the thing is, I don't see how you could have any idea of how much money you're taking in, because I foiled the records and they don't exist, which is basically, anyway, also, okay, on item number 50, this is a problem. We're retaining an attorney for the Woodmere Club issue, and the resolution details really just mimic the resolution without doing a feasibility study. But number 50. And there is no address of this attorney. There is no contract as to what he's going to really be doing. There's no price, how much he's going to be charging per hour.
I think this is Councilman Diaz-Zito. Is this your resolution, Councilman Diaz-Zito? Sorry, item 50. Mr. Pagacci is asking a question about item 50.
Sorry, Mr. Pagacci, it's Frederick P. Clark, and it's a firm that's being hired to conduct a financial report of what it would cost the town to make the Woodmere Club either a park district or a town of Hempstead park. This way the supervisor and the town board have proper numbers as to what we're getting ourselves into.
This is the details of the resolution. It's one long sentence. There's no, how much is he getting paid per hour?
Do you want to explain?
Well, you don't have to explain it. Why don't you just put it in writing and put it up on the town's website? So this goes into the ether here. We want things in writing. So it's an improper resolution, and you shouldn't be voting on it, something unless you know the prices. So this goes to the legality. You should not be voting on something if you don't know the numbers. So basically, you should remove this from the calendar until you get the details, because how could the town board be voting blindly on something? Well, why would they vote blindly on something? So, anyway, I just want to reiterate once again that you should remove number 68 and you should rescind the 1978 law in order to follow the law, follow New York State law, follow New York State zoning law, follow town zoning law, okay? Common sense has nothing to do with the law. Unless you want to use that in the defense in a court of law, then do that, because I don't believe anyone here would do that, okay? It's as simple as that. Please rescind the law and put an end to this nonsense.
Charles Myers.
Second time's a charm. I didn't get to talk to anybody the first time. I'll get right to the point of these because I'm talking to you first.
Could you just again state your name and address for the record, please, Mr.
My
Myers?
name's Charles Myers. I live in 55 Hudson Avenue. I'll get right to the point.
Can you pull the microphone a little closer? Can't hear you.
I'm not. I used to talk, but I'm a local citizen. I don't have a chance anymore.
We're giving you a chance right now. We're happy to hear you speak, Mr. Myers.
Now, as far as you taking legal action against the other members, that's ridiculous. How many of you on here are attorneys? Just raise your hands. Okay? And we spent $3.3 million on legal services. That's ridiculous. That's all I'm going to say. I mean, the town of Hempstead deserves better than that. Period.
Thank you for your comments. Next, we have Susan Cuocchio.
Hi, my name is Susan Cuocchio. I live at 56 Maple Avenue, Floral Park, New York. Good morning. My son has been a participant in Camp Anchor for over 20 years. My daughter has been a volunteer, a staff member, a specialist at the camp for over 10 years. I have actively volunteered for the Anchor Program Fund for over 10 years, and I'm a board member and the treasurer for the Anchor Program Fund for the past 2 years. As you know, the Anchor Program Fund is the not-for-profit 501c parent organization that raises and accepts donations to maintain, enhance, and further support Camp Anchor. This year, the town of Hempstead and the Anchor Program Fund proudly celebrates 50 years of providing programs for children and adults with special needs. The Anchor Program Fund has always worked together with Camp Anchor to coordinate our focus and efforts better to meet the needs of its participants. I have had the pleasure to volunteer alongside Mary Ann Hansen on many projects and events over the past 10 years, during which she has consistently given of her time on her own time. During the past 2 years, in order to fulfill my responsibilities as treasurer, I've had the opportunity to work closely, almost daily, with Mary Ann Hansen working as the active coordinator. I have witnessed firsthand Mary Ann's dedication to her job, her respect for her coworkers, and her devotion to the needs of the campers and their families. I've always found Mary Ann to be mindful and respectful of another point of view, even when their actions make that difficult to do, and frankly, some don't warrant that respect. Mary Ann has graciously held herself to that standard in what is often a difficult climate. Mary Ann has always put the responsibility of meeting the needs of the campers under her supervision and her vision for the future of Anchor as her top priority. So I truly recommend that Mary Ann Hansen to this position and ask that you heed this show of support from me and the others who came here today and urge you to appoint Mary Ann Hansen as Recreational Program Development Supervisor. Thank you.
Thank you. As some of you may know, I was a volunteer at Camp Anchor myself, and I worked there for many, many years in the pool, lifeguarding and teaching swimming lessons, and also down at the ocean. Camp Anchor is an incredibly special place, one of the things I think the town of Hempstead can be most proud of, and it should always be a place of love and joy and not politicized, so I thank you for your comments.
Not to be outdone by the supervisor, I was a volunteer at Camp Anchor on their 3rd anniversary. I think President Lincoln was president. And I have 2 children that were volunteers there. It's a wonderful, wonderful program, and Mary Ann's a special person.
People that volunteer in the hot sun, very long days, show their merit, and therefore go on further to do good things for people.
They come out better people for doing it.
Certainly do. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Patricia Aquino? If you just have a seat and just state your name and address for the record, please.
Patricia Aquino, 304 Chester Street, Uniondale, New York, 11553. Sorry.
Go right ahead. It's okay, just start speaking, it's fine.
I just wanted to come here was in reference to bring up that I was informed by my daughter's physical therapist, who has been working at Camp Anchor, Martin Brule, that he's no longer allowed to do therapy. So I just wanted to come on behalf and speak in reference to some of the parents that their children do receive physical therapy as to how much it's going to basically affect them, because now we're gonna have to try to figure out when they're gonna do therapy, and some of them could, it could regress their progress and everything. My daughter didn't start really walking until she was in kindergarten, and now, she's a 9th grader, which has done amazingly with the help and also from her therapist, and also the help from myself and our family on trying to, keep up with all the exercise and everything. So I wanted to just, come and speak on behalf to see if, you guys would be able to come up with some resolution as to allowing him to continue doing therapy at camp.
Ms. Aquino, I do appreciate your comments, and I wish you the best with your daughter's recovery and her journey into walking. And certainly nobody is telling you that Mr. Grohl or anybody else can't perform therapy. I believe the issue is that having private physical therapists coming into our camp. Maybe Commissioner Lino, are you here? Would you please speak to this issue? Commissioner Lino?
And before Commissioner Lino gets up, again, we're glad that your daughter's doing well, and we hope that she continues. Camp Anchor is a camp. What we have to be careful of is outside vendors coming in who may not be adhering to state laws regarding health care, because we're not a healthcare facility. So having private vendors do that type of work that are not employees of the town of Hempstead on town of Hempstead property is a liability issue for us, and it may be a legal issue for us. So it's not that we don't want to do it. And Councilwoman Erin King Sweeney is proposing today that we establish protocols, and we'll have our lawyers check with the law to determine whether or not these are activities that we can do under the healthcare laws of both the federal government and the state government, and how we could have a protocol to do this, or whether or not we cannot do it because we're not a healthcare facility. So those are some of the issues. It's not that we don't want to provide this service, we just may not be able to.
That's 100% correct. And we're not looking to close the door on any avenue. We want the best for all the children in Camp Anchor. With that being said, there are legal issues that need to be looked into, and we intend to do so.
Yeah, I would only add that currently there is a town code section that prohibits, and Councilman Whiteman was alluding to this, is a town code section that prohibits a professional business or service being run in one of our park facilities. So we're going to have to really delve into, that the ability of the town to allow this going forward. And so when this was called to the Commissioner's attention about Mr. Burrell's circumstance, that he was being paid by school districts to come there, that was on its face in violation of the town code section. So we've asked them to stop it now until we can maybe get the protocol that we're talking about in place.
And we intend to look into that, yeah. Thank you.
I think you'll agree that our Commissioner Lino's doing a great job with Camp Anchor. I've been there a few times, and they were just delighted. It's a great place. So I want to thank you, Commissioner, for not only doing a great job with the park, but watching out for our local parks also.
Thank you for your comments.
I emphasize that so much.
E. Callahan and Thomas?
A bunch of us were there already, just
Okay, you can all have an opportunity to speak.
Hi.
Hi, if you would just state your name and address for the record.
Elizabeth Callahan, 471 Woodfield Road, West Hempstead. And this is Thomas.
Hi, Thomas. Thank you for coming today.
We just came out also in support of Mary Ann Hansen. I had Thomas with the camper and 2 other sons who have been at Anchor as volunteers, and
He likes candy.
as volunteers and staff, please. And Mary Ann had just always been there for for everyone at camp. And also, just I know my youngest son started a walkathon at Kellenberg for Anchor, and Marion was always there for that. When I went to fundraisers for at Sacred Heart, Thomas and I went, Marianne was there. There was one at Floral Park School, Marianne was there. She just is always there at every fundraiser, always in her own time. On her own time, at every meeting with us, helping us, to increase use of the building, to make it more of the Anchor family. She's just always there for us, so we just wanted to.
And Anna and I, I'm Patty Daly, this is Anna Tragone. We do the beach ball every year. It'll be our 10th year to doing the beach ball to raise money to get the building from 10 years ago. And Marian has always been a big part. She's always helped us any way she can.
Everyone
Loves the kids. I mean, the kids love her.
We wanted to thank the town also, because many years
Yeah.
at our beach ball, I remember Dorothy was there, and they came out and they gave us our building that we were so hard working for. So we want to thank the board and everybody in the town. It's just been wonderful because we've been having so many events there and have expanded all of our activities because of it. And we have a lot of parents here that, you can take everything's going off. Susan talked for all of us, and we didn't have to reiterate and, give you, extra time. So we want to thank everybody. Thomas, say hi. Hi.
Thomas, welcome.
If I could say thank you, Thomas, and thank you, all of you, and all the other people in the audience for coming and expressing your strong support for Camp Anchor. I think there's nothing more important in the town of Hempstead that we do than Camp Anchor. And I also want to thank you for your kind comments and well-deserved comments about Marianne Hansen. And to the importance of Camp Anchor, I wish to reiterate what the supervisor said. There's no room for politics in Camp Anchor. That's the one place that should be sacred, so I appreciate all of your coming back.
And I'd like to say I thank all of you for all that you do. You get a long paycheck, but you do a wonderful job. And I'll never forget the fact that we were the ones who put in a ramp to get down to the beach. Remember that? We didn't have it. We have it now.
I thank you for your comments as well, and just, I witnessed firsthand the dedication that you outlined when we had a participant in our camp go missing one evening, a very, very frigid evening, and to see Ms. Hansen in action, mobilizing, I see we have Chief Arrester from Malvern here, mobilizing the Malvern Police Force and neighboring police force and fire departments, and out with Mayor Patty McDonald. I was out with them. I witnessed firsthand walking the streets of Malvern, searching for this young boy, and Marianne's dedication to never go home until she found that boy. So I witnessed that dedication and devotion to the children and the adults who go to Camp Anchor firsthand. So I thank you again for your comments.
Thank you for coming.
Dennis McDonald?
Good morning, I'm Dennis McDonald. I live at 710 Roosevelt Street in Franklin Square. This will be, I'm afraid, just a little bit more of the same. But I'd just like to give a momentary qualification of myself. The women who have spoken already about Marianne Hansen have had a much more personal relationship. My relationship is just more of an observation. But some of you gentlemen know me. I'm very active in my community. I was a carry dad for 12 years. I'm currently in my 11th year as chairperson of the Citizens Budget Advisory Committee in Franklin Square. I've been making at least 23 years for St. Catherine of Siena and worked with the youth group while we had it there. So I'm not here to just come out of my couch potato and come here and ask of you. I am a participant, and I hope that gives me a little bit of credibility. But this will be very brief and pleasant. I am a parent of a young adult who's been part of the Anchor program for over 20 years. I have been a witness to the many wonderful and caring people who provide a fun, caring, and safe place where my daughter feels comfortable and happy, and that says a lot. While there is a core of workers and volunteers that assist and relate directly to the campus, I recognize the strength and dedication of the program leadership that creates this atmosphere. And so today I'm here to recognize Marianne, the acting coordinator, Marianne Hansen. It is a deep-rooted devotion to each and every participant that defines the continued excellence of the Anchor program. From many everyday decisions on the careful operation of Camp Anchor and all its many programs, she has proven to be an extremely effective leader and is seemingly always looking for new and meaningful projects and events. This I consider to be a true example of that dedication, as a program that's existed for so long and so happily, it would be very easy to just go with the status quo. She's always looking to try to add another event, a bingo or something, and she has instituted many things since she's taken over, so I think that's a real credit to her. And Ms. Hansen is driven by a true devotion to her Anchor family and to a tireless pursuit of excellence. As a parent of a 30-year-old with autism, whose life is more joyful than I could have imagined, because of the Camp Anchor diverse activities, I respectfully request that you appoint Marianne Hansen as the new coordinator of Camp Anchor. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just have one question. Is Cary High School football going to beat Garden City this year?
It's been playing a lot better the last few years since they got the new coach.
Good, I'm rooting for it.
Marianne Pizza?
Dennis made me cry. Good morning, my name is Marianne Pizza. I'm from 780 Dowdy Avenue, Franklin Square. I'm a parent of a 23-year-old man that attends Camp Anchor for the past 18 years. I am also the bookkeeper for the non-for-profit organization, the Anchor Program Fund, that supplements many of the supplies and equipment and programs at camp. Before that, I was on the board of directors when the previous camp coordinator was there prior to his retirement. I have worked directly with Marianne Hansen over the years, and even more closely the last year and a half as the bookkeeper. She has been very compliant with all the necessary changes that have been put in place since the restructuring of our board of directors. Marianne has always been there for the parents and their children. She's incredibly generous with her time and expertise, which includes her 30 years of experience working in Anchor in many different positions, to dealing with special needs families, and believe me, we could be a tough bunch, and to her expert knowledge of OPWDD and independent support services. Since being on the board, I've witnessed her present many new programs and ideas to enhance the children and adults camp experience. As acting coordinator this past year, she has helped bring horse therapy program to Anchor for the first time this summer. She has implemented 3 new fall, winter, and spring daytime programs for the adults over the age of 21, cooking, yoga, and karate. She was able to listen to what our parents were in need of and to help make it a reality for all of us. Marianne is the face of Anchor. She knows our children since they were babies, and she raised them with us. Our children have benefited from her tireless work ethics and willingness to do whatever it takes to make the families and campers happy. I support Marianne to this position as Recreational Program Development Supervisor, and thank you for listening.
Thank you. Patty McDonald?
Patty McDonald, 20 Michelle Court, Malvern, New York. All the stories that were just spoken about Marianne, I just wanted to give another side of Marianne in her support of all of the people that are here today, and not just the people at Camp Anchor, but beyond Camp Anchor. We, in the village of Malvern, had, as many communities around Nassau County, there are agencies that help provide housing for young adults with special needs. And the village of Malvern, twice in the past 10 years, one just recently, Unfortunately, some people are not as open-minded as I would like to think we all here are. And at our board meeting, we had the agency, along with the residents that lived next to the homes that were being purchased for the young adults with special needs. And the parents that are here today can contest to what I'm speaking about. When you have a child, I don't personally have a child with special needs, but as you all know, I had a husband with special needs. And when, just to explain, when my husband came home from the hospital, at the time, over 30 years ago, they wanted Stephen to go to a nursing home. And I said, well, I wanted him home with me to have, you know, a quote, you know, normal life as possible. Just like the young adults with special needs and their families, they want to have a quote, normal life as possible. And these agencies try to help provide by purchasing homes that are overseen by the state. And unfortunately, like I said, some of the homeowners that live near these houses that were being purchased were not as open-minded. And they came and they said some, thank God they weren't, the meetings were not televised, because I was quite embarrassed by some of the comments that were made. But Mary Ann came to the defense of these young adults with special needs. Some she didn't know. The one that was just with us, that came before the board about a month or so ago, Mary Ann knew 3 of the young girls. Knew them since 5 years old. They were campers at Camp Anchor. And she spoke so eloquently in letting and educating the people that were there speaking against the home being purchased by this agency. So Mary Ann not only, I mean, she's on the job 24/7, not just when she's at Camp Anchor, but beyond that. And again, like I said, she helped educate, and people, their tune changed after Mary Ann spoke, along with a number of other residents that came. So I just want to speak in support of Mary Ann. I think has done a wonderful job at Camp Anchor, and like I said, she goes beyond her job at Camp Anchor. She's just a wonderful human being. Thank you for letting me speak.
I'd like to speak if you don't mind, sir.
I yield to you.
I would like to say to you, thank you for coming. You're a wonderful mayor. We didn't say that you are, but I know your husband and I know what you've gone through all of your life. I don't normally talk about my past that I've done. You know, I worked in care, medical care for many years, and many of those were with young people who had special needs and with seniors, and written a couple of books. So I know how to know people. I can pick up people who really care about people who have special needs, and it is a wonderful person who can do that. Many people cannot. So I feel the same as you do. I know that she's doing a wonderful job, and that's why I support them as much as I can. So I thank you for coming, and certainly other people should feel the same and stop the fact that they don't want certain homes in that area. You never know what's going to be through, and that's something I hope people will learn from what you're saying and what the youngest are saying and what she's doing. So thank you so much for coming.
Mayor, I also want to thank you for coming here today. There really isn't a week that doesn't go by where we don't think about Stephen and his service, especially in light of yesterday's shooting of a New York State trooper who unfortunately gave his life in the service of the state. So again, thank you for coming and sharing your story about Mary Ann. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Dragos?
Yeah, I'm okay.
Patty Daly? Mary Ellen Craig?
Good afternoon, Mary Ellen Cray, 436 Locust Avenue, Uniondale. On items number 12 and 13, I just think it's kind of weird that periodically we get these resolutions that approve something that has already happened.
I agree with you, and we're talking about changing that so we approve things before they happen. I agree.
I'd like to see that. On item number 26, I want to add my very grateful appreciation for this. As you know, I've been pushing for this for a while, so I'm very, very appreciative that we're moving along. And when the resolution is officially passed, I would ask to have a copy of the actual resolution, please.
I'd be happy to provide it to you, Mr.
On 34 and 35, which the marginal road streetscaping, I know that Hempstead Gardens has worked very hard for that streetscaping, and very much appreciate that. Also on 35, that's at Hempstead Turnpike. What is that, like a little piece of, is it along the roadway, or is it a corner section, or?
It's a grant from the State Dormitory Authority, the commission.
Yes, I see that.
We had a little extra money from the grant, so therefore we added 2 more areas.
Very nice.
It's a marginal road along the roadway, along Hempstead Turnpike.
North side of the turnpike, or
It's on the south side.
That side. So, in front of Hofstra?
No, it's further down.
Further east?
Further east.
That piece that's just before you get to the plaza?
It's right off the one,
Oh, further.
the wrong.
This is Uniondale. Wait a minute, yes, Uniondale Avenue, and that's the turnpike.
There are 2 more pieces, remember that they asked us to do, we haven't implemented, so we're adding those 2 to the original thing. We added those.
I can show you the exact location if you want to say.
That's great, that's great, thank you. And I'm very pleased. Anything that adds to the beautification of Uniondale is appreciated. And you know that there are people, especially in Hempstead Garden, working very, very hard to improve the.
Please don't forget to give credit to the ones who started all of this in the first place, Kathleen's sister.
Yes, yes. We miss them, right?
Yes, we
They're
do.
still around, but,
I know.
and the final thing is number 66. I know it's a public hearing, but do you have an idea what kind of improvements to the Uniondale Water District, please?
Who's going to tell? A lot of water districts are going to do.
This is approving bonds and some work we're doing in the Uniondale District, including design of repainting the tank, again, in Hempstead Boulevard, construction of a new well, and improvements to a treatment system that's in place.
When you say improvements to the treatment system, can you go into a little bit of detail?
It's an existing treatment system at the Oak Street site. There's a filtration system there that we're making some improvements on for additional contaminants.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Rory Gordon. I don't have to, you want to speak now? I don't have to speak up. I don't have her slips up. I have her slips up after she speaks.
Is it Gordon?
Gordon.
Oh.
Her name is Rory Gordon.
It sounds alike.
I'm
sorry. I'm sorry.
There's only one Rory Gordon.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm glad you recognize that.
Oh, yes, I
Actually, only 2 in the United States that I know of. Will the entire board be staying for public comment today? I'm asking now, so I know in advance. Okay, because last time I came, there were only 2 people here for public comment. Mr. Diaz-Casita, will you be here? Okay. Will you be here?
I will be here.
Okay. Mr. Blakeman?
I'll stay as long as I can.
Okay. Okay. Mr. Dunn? Okay. Just curious. Okay. On number 14. Yeah, I am going to, oh no, there was another sheet, I'm sorry. Well, I don't know what they did with it. Well, I'm going to talk on what I wrote down. I gave 4 sheets up there. 4.
Just talk. Rory, just talk.
Okay, on item... Okay, number 14. The resolution authorizing agreement with RP Solutions in the receiver of the tax department. Can you pay your real estate taxes by credit card?
Yes.
Okay. On item number 15, resolution authorizing an agreement with OPEX Corporation for support and maintenance of the mail processing equipment used in the Office of the Receiver of Taxes. Who approves the correspondence that's sent out by the Department of Taxes in this particular situation where they use these particular machines because they use them for mailings?
The receiver.
The receiver? Well, what are the parameters as to what gets sent out? I couldn't find it in the code. What is it that he's legally entitled to send?
The receiver of taxes sends out those mailings which he believes appropriate. He knows that's how he runs his office.
Okay. Does it get approved by the supervisor?
I believe the supervisor's office reviews what mailings are going around. Yes.
I'm sorry.
I don't know if approve is the right word. He's an elected official. He runs his department. But I'm sure the supervisor's office has an opportunity to look at what documents, what mailings are going out.
Ms. Gillen, I have a question for you. Do you approve what goes out correspondence-wise from the tax department?
There's nothing been submitted to me, to my office for the receiver of taxes.
The reason that I'm bringing this up is in the past, Supervisor Santino, his name is on every single thing. Now it seems like the tax department has its own branch and they do their own marketing and their own advertising. So I'm wondering where this change took place and how come it wasn't voted on.
Well, the receiver of taxes has our former communications director in his office.
That doesn't give
voted on in December.
That doesn't give him the right to do that. I just want to point that out.
Ms. Gordon?
Yes.
Tax receiver is an independent elected official. He's allowed to do his mailings without any input from anybody else. The fact that it wasn't done in the past does not make it wrong today. Don Clayton is an independent elected official, and we stand by his ability to his independent mailings and post whatever he wants to as an independent elected official.
Is that because we have a Democratic supervisor now and before Santino took charge of everything?
No, that's because this is America and he's allowed to do it, that's why.
Yes, it's so interesting how biased this board has become since now we have a Democrat sitting in the seat. Okay. Number 40, how are the people paying these fees? I can't hear you, I'm sorry.
You have 27?
No, I'm trying to get my point across by going in the order of what I'm going in. Number 40, how are the fees paid? Are they paid by credit card?
We just started accepting credit cards at our parks facility, at least the ones at the beach. We just started accepting them, so they can pay by cash or by credit card.
How about the one at Franklin Square or Avon Park?
Commissioner Lino, do we have credit card processing at Franklin Square? Not at this time.
Okay, so what is the only way that they can pay? By cash?
They pay by cash?
Don't you find that a little bit unusual?
We're moving to put credit card processing in all our parks.
Okay.
But they don't have to pay for those. All the parks, they don't pay to come in.
In the parks where we collect a fee, we're moving to put credit card processing in them.
Okay, number 49, what is this company backup?
Commissioner. So they do our tape backup media offsite in a secure location. It's a renewal for a 2-year contract. Commissioner Prim, do you have anything to add? The services that Iron Mountain provides.
Yeah, that's just about it. It's our tape backup of our data.
Data, anything, is it like email correspondence, is it video, is it the documents in the building department?
All of our data.
Okay, when you say all of your data, everything that's scanned in?
Mr. Prim, the offsite data is our entire server, correct?
Yes.
Whatever is on the town of Hempstead server gets backed up. Usually it's set up it's either daily or weekly.
Right.
I think we have every, 24 hours? Gets backed up to an offsite location.
Where I'm going with this is, why is it when I go into the building department, there's literally stacks of files that are from the floor to the top of your desk there, everywhere that you look, there's data, and it's just sitting there. Why is it not in a computer?
Because we don't have this, we not set for it yet.
We're moving in that direction. There's a lot of paper in the town of Hempstead. We're trying to change that and start moving to digitizing everything.
They said that,
It's a big, big job.
yeah, they said that back in 2013 also. Okay, moving forward, who provides the, I'm sorry, sir, I'm done with you. Who provides the general liability to the town? I mean, I see here, is this the company, the one that does the flood insurance?
Which number you want?
21.
21? Not the publisher to get back for it.
Mr. Tennant, I understand with respect to this renewal of this insurance policy, my office became aware of it when it was on the verge of expiration, so there really was no time to renegotiate the rates. We've spoken that we've actually brought in a consultant to look at all our insurance across the board to make sure we're getting the most favorable rates that we possibly can. But this was something that we were in a crisis situation. Mr. Wright, you can correct me if I'm wrong, because we needed to renew it right away because we can't not have this insurance.
That's correct.
Was this the policy you had last year, same?
Excuse me?
Yes, it's a renewal, yes?
I didn't hear what you said.
Same company as last year?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, it's Stack Insurance is the agency, it's same as last year.
Okay, also, do they write most of the insurance for the town of Hempstead?
Well, in general terms, for negligence and most liability, the town of Hempstead is self-insured. This is to protect against fire and disasters and things like that to the buildings down at the beach and those kinds of things. It's not for automobile accidents. We're self-insured for that.
Okay, when you say you're self-insured, can you explain to myself so I can have a complete understanding what that means? And I'll give you an example. If there's a 1983 action, who's responsible to pay the the plaintiff if the plaintiff wins?
The town of Hempstead, there's no insurance for that.
Okay, so it comes out of the general fund and the taxpayers pay it? Okay. Number 27. Can somebody explain to me what file trail is?
I believe file trail it's a digital tag that goes on the building department files so we can keep track of where the files go as they move around. Commissioner Rockcamp, I don't know if you can elaborate a little bit further on that.
Good afternoon, Supervisor, members of the Town Board. That is correct. Back in 2013, we put file trail in place. It is RFID technology, radio frequency identification, which is basically an ID tag that is on every file. We currently have approximately 60,000 active folders that move throughout the building department, the town attorney's office, the BZA, and these readers read exactly where the files are at all times, so that if we're looking for one, we know exactly where it is.
How many people are trained to use the equipment?
Again, it's in the computer, so you can just look exactly where it is, and there's numerous.
why is it since the beginning of time, since I've been in litigation with the town, I still do not have my file for the public assembly of Green 2009? If you have this miraculous thing that you guys spent, I think, $128,000 for, and you can't find files, why? And that's, wait, before you even answer that question, 3 or 4 of our files have gone missing in time. What is the purpose of having something that you put a document in if the employee doesn't put the document in there? Or if the employee takes the document out and doesn't put it back in? What is the purpose of the taxpayer spending all this money and now you have to renew it? To me, this system is a failure. I brought it up last year, I brought it up the year before. Why?
Mr. Commissioner, please don't answer. This is matter is in litigation. Please don't comment.
Do we just have a lame duck building department? Is that the problem? Thank you. Shame on me. Look who's talking, you unqualified man. It's the truth, and you guys know it. It's true.
Okay, I do not have any other slips on the administrative calendar, unless I have one coming right now.
Yes.
Tyler Marco?
My name is Tyler Marco. I'm from the Nassau Herald. I have questions about item 50. I know Councilman D'Esposito has put that forward. My questions are about the Woodmere Club. You were saying that looking at hiring a lawyer to determine if it would be, what the cost would be to purchase the Woodmere Club land and turn it into a park, correct?
I think the way that we have explored this from with council, but
We're looking at various uses. And as you may know, the owners of the club have sued the town of Hempstead. So we're looking at various uses, and I'm not going to go beyond that.
The goal here is to make sure that we have all the information that we need before a decision is made moving forward.
Okay. Is there
we can't make decisions on parks or park districts without having the proper information to actually make that decision.
Let me just supplement what Councilman D'Esposito said. We promised the public that we would look at all options. We are looking at all options. This was something that was not fully explored in the initial report that was done by Cameron. So we are now just fulfilling a promise that we made to the community to give them some idea what it would take, what it would cost if they wanted to create a park district.
Since the land has already been purchased, is there any more concern of more pending lawsuits?
Excuse me?
Is there concern about more pending lawsuits as the land has already been purchased by the company?
We are not going to comment and speculate on whether we're going to be sued. We do everything within the letter of the law, and at that point, if someone decides to initiate an action, that's their right, but we try to do everything by the book.
Is there just an idea of how long this research would take? How long it would be before the decision would be made on this?
When it's written.
I think we've asked them to expedite it, right, Councilman?
Yes.
We'd like them to get it done ASAP.
Okay.
Thank you.
Nita Meredith?
Rita J. Meredith, Baldwin resident. Starting with items 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. As it pertains to 9 and 10, I'm just curious again about the vetting process for the companies in the selection as it pertains to professional services, but that's like a whole other issue. With regard to fireworks, 11, 12, and 13, while we're celebrating having fireworks to celebrate our independence and remembering, we need to remember our veterans as well as our animals who suffer during this process with these firecrackers and the safety issues for our young people. And we need to take that into consideration in terms of where these fireworks and these activities take place. I mean, even for myself, living in Baldwin, in northern Baldwin, we cannot have a spot shot thing that the police department uses to identify gunshots, because we are in hearing range of where the police officers do their practice. So every morning, pretty much except on the weekends, I hear a fusillage of bullets. I can only hope that it is because I'm downwind from that scenario. But again, we have a lot of animals that go into crisis this time of year, and I know that there is someone, I believe in Suffolk County, who has been distributing signs to a number of our veterans to notify people as to someone living in that facility or in that home, just to have some consideration, because the fireworks that we think is all about celebrating is also a very traumatic experience for them. So let's take that into consideration when you give these resolutions and approvals for the fireworks.
Well, you know what, Ms. Meriday, I think you make a very good point. Everybody knows on 4th of July that there are going to be fireworks, but there are other times when there are fireworks displays that we should notify the public, because like you said, there are people with PTSD that would deeply trouble them. There are people that have panic attack syndromes. If you notice, at a lot of the concerts now that are held, they will announce beforehand that there will be some kind of fireworks or some kind of explosive device in their performance, and warns them ahead of time that that's going to happen, which I think is a good thing, because it can, to someone who has that syndrome, it can be very, very upsetting. So it's a good point.
I agree, that's a good point, and perhaps we can work together with our clerk's office when she's taking in the permits to make sure that if it is at an unusual time, that we can give out some notice and make people aware that there are fireworks.
I'm sorry.
The councilwoman said we already have rigid rules about the approval of firework permit, and so we should check that. Certainly, we don't need to be redundant. I agree, Councilwoman. If there is some provision in there to provide notice, great. If there isn't, then we'll maybe consider, as a board, putting something in there.
Because the reason, as the rules are on paper, there's still an issue of enforcement, and people are not taking into consideration that these displays are taking place near senior citizen facilities and things of that nature. We're not looking at the least vulnerable among us. As it pertains to the resolutions for various positions, I guess 15, if you need a specific number, like number 15, trying to get the other ones together. 29, I mean, where are the grants, as we're talking about youth grants, where are the grants for services for veterans and their families? I always see a number of things for youth services. Number 35, 36, this is grant-funded money from the state, which incorporates the federal government. Where is the applications and to the law that applies to inclusion for diverse businesses and participation, minority, women, service-disabled veterans, things of that nature? And it would be nice, let me just finish my point while I have it. It would be nice if some of these positions that have been announced, it would be nice if there was the subhead that said this is a minority and women-owned business, or this is a service-disabled veteran-owned business. What's the hurt? You already used the ink. You know, we talk about how we're trying to be inclusive and have people involved. Maybe if we see some of these names over and over again, if we see a context to the constituency and the representation, that would give someone some hope that we're not doing business as usual in the township now.
Ms. Murray, I'd just like to point out item 67 on the administrative calendar is a resolution to call for a public hearing at our next town board meeting to provide a preference for eligible service-disabled veteran-owned businesses.
Right. Oh, yeah. I appreciate it. I'm getting there. I'm trying to work myself through this. 55 and 56. Again, as I said, this again authorizing to retain engineering, again, just as far as the inclusion and the outreach. And lastly, my note on this one was funny. If everything was perfect to begin with, why do we need to do this? I definitely agree that we need to do this, but I've been saying for a good while that we have been, in essence, violating the law, and I just find it amusing. I'm trying to make it comical in a sense because my disappointment just seems to run rampant. That with this process, I'm curious as to who exactly is going to be making the presentation as it pertains to this law. Like who within the township is making the information, presenting the topics as it pertains to that, because there's a law, and this is a copy of it, and I provided to the clerk from the documentation that I put together for legislator, now county executive Curran, back in 2012, that went on the books for 2014. It was finally passed in 2016, and I believe that was when Councilman Dunn was then legislator Dunn, and he was one of those that applauded this, and it was a bipartisan, everybody agreed to it. There was no teeth to it. To this day, the three components of this, and I was the one that designated the proposal that generated this law in the county. I was the one that put together the proposal for it. There is still no funding, no mandates, and no outreach for this. So for me to be excited about this coming up in 2018, when I have challenged this township for years with having the lack of this and the lack of reinforcement and the lack of outreach and being told everything is above board and by the books here, I'm really not that excited about it because nobody's even reached out to me. So earlier we heard about all of the great things about the woman who works for Camp Anchor and her experience and being out there and going above and beyond. I'm sitting here, one of the most vocal, if not involved. I don't just sit here to be sitting here. I'm still on the phone with trying to deal with families, even those that live in jurisdictions like Councilman Desposito, trying to get dormers on 90-year-old World War II veterans on their homes so that their residents or families can stay there. I'm sitting here. No one in this county, like this township in particular, has had the common courtesy or the professional courtesy to contact me and say, what do you think about that? You know, what is your input on this? And as I said to you when I was at the Caribbean Heritage Month, I thought it was a great thing that was done there. But how insulting to have so many misspellings on the countries that were listed on that flyer. So again, how are we well representing our constituency and we're not even including them?
Ms. Narade, I appreciate your...
I know that my time is up, but it's like I definitely wanted to get that point across.
I understand. I appreciate your comments. You have been very vocal about giving preferences to our veteran-owned businesses, and this was an effort actually receiving your comments, taking them to heart, and thinking, yes, this is absolutely something we should do. We'll be happy to provide you with a copy of the resolution and the proposed language of the resolution, and if you have comments to add, we'll welcome your feedback.
But if I hadn't said anything, if I hadn't brought it up, so it would just be something that, again, someone from behind the scenes here, with whatever experience or background I have no awareness about, as I'm reading about yet another VA director at Northport leaving because of the same issues that staff who are still afraid to speak up about the concerns working for the town. The bullying, the infighting, and the lack of support. You're approving resolutions to provide for training for people to go outside of the arena. When you have qualified people who are sitting in this room who can provide training, if nothing else, for customer service, for sensitivity, for cultural awareness. They're sitting right here and still struggling to pay the taxes here, but no, you're going to use all these outside resources, and any of this that you're going to do is not going to have any teeth, any substance, and it's going to be the same old at our expense. And we're going to be the ones fighting these zombie houses that are increasing, our young people who are leaving in droves, and our veterans who are dying in silence. So if that's how we're going to celebrate Independence Day 2018, when our veterans, for the most part, can't even celebrate because they're still living the traumas of their war service, then shame on all of us for that. And I'm using this last time to recognize, and I appreciate the fact that we wanted to recognize the person who lost I want to give recognition to those journalists who lost their life trying to give freedom, which is our First Amendment rights, freedom of speech. I salute Aaron.
I don't have any other slips on the administrative calendar. Yes.
She spoke up already, didn't she?
Do you want me to identify myself again, or?
Please, just in this round of her, thank you.
Yeah, Heidi Sapp, Vice President, No String Garden Civic Association. Thank you. Regarding Resolution 34 and 35, the Uniondale Avenue Streetscaping Project. After 10 years of lobbying for streetscaping and beautification of Uniondale Avenue, our residents and our members of our civic group are extremely excited about this. Yay! Sorry, I had to say that. I do have one question. Do you know approximately when the shovel will go into the ground? Can someone give us an estimate?
Commissioner, do you have an idea of the schedule?
Well, as soon as this ends, we're going to send out a notice of award to the contractor. Then that contractor has to go and acquire the proper assurances. So we'll probably say about 2 months. Yeah, is a reasonable time. I mean, we'll try as much as we can. My department isn't going to be managing the actual construction. We put out the contract. We'll be hiring the contractor.
Yeah, the reason I'm asking for him to please do all possible to expedite is that we were originally told that the project would start in May, the town's part, and so it's now July. And the other thing is that we have a beautification project where we plant about 1,000 flowers every year. We held off on that on Uniondale Avenue with the anticipation that the project would start this summer. So we really need the project to be started this summer. To have to wait until September, it's just too long. So whatever it takes to push it forward after 10 years of blood, sweat, and tears on many people's parts, especially of our resident Pro Jacobs, who insisted that I speak, even though I'm not the president.
Yeah, it's certainly
Please
possible that it could
push it through faster.
It's certainly possible that it may happen sooner. I'm just trying to give you the most realistic timeline.
Things have a way of being able to be fast-tracked if enough people move things quickly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, good afternoon, Pro Jacobs, President of the Nostrand Garden Civic Association in Uniondale. Of course, you know the Nostrand Garden Civic Association is an organization dedicated to bringing about sustained positive quality of life transformation to Uniondale. I want to touch on a couple of issues. I want to make a comment regarding the Camp Anchor folks that were here today. I wish them well, and I would like to make a statement to the town of Hempstead in regard to, from a standpoint of Uniondale, requesting that perhaps group homes can be steered to Uniondale. Actually, there's a lot of homes for sale in Uniondale, and it would be great if the group homes can come to Uniondale. We do have a group home there already, plus group homes, and they're a wonderful organization. And wonderful members that live in that home of the community. It would be a great asset to have them there, replacing the illegal housing that breeds a myriad of atrocities in Uniondale at this time. Okay, it would replace the group home, I'm sorry, the illegal housing as well as the hostile housing, where we are having a lot of problems. So that's just food for thought. Thank you. Regarding issue 12, resolution 12, fireworks, there are a lot of rules and laws governed by the town of Hempstead, but unfortunately they're not enforced. We have a big problem in Uniondale with fireworks going off at not only on 4th of July, but throughout the summer. Okay, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. You know, I had brought this up to the police department, and the Nassau County Police Department does a wonderful job, but they need the help also from the town of Hempstead. They try to be everywhere at every time, but it's impossible. And you know, people do have to get up in the morning, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock to go to a job, and they have to listen to fireworks 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. Thank you. And the Unionville streetscaping. We thank you for that. It's a long time coming, but as my vice president asked, Heidi Sam, we asked that to be expedited. I had a conference call with the county last week, and there's an issue with NIFA regarding their part of the streetscaping. The Uniondale residents have anticipated this for we're waiting 10 years already, and we were promised a May shovel in the ground time frame, and now it's July. And the commissioner just said we're pushing it down to September. We would like, if you can, we're requesting that to be expedited. And another issue, I was having coffee with one of my neighbors last week, a longtime resident of Uniondale, and she was asking me about community identity and welcome signs and entry signs coming into Uniondale. Uniondale lacks welcome signs. Surrounding communities have very attractive welcome signs, and some communities have very elaborate welcome entry signs. And why doesn't Uniondale have welcome signs? Uniondale Fire Department has provided 2 welcome entry signs, one on Jerusalem Avenue near ShopRite, and another one Hempstead Turnpike. And the overwhelming feeling of the community is that Uniondale's community that is excluded and marginalized. The lack of welcome entry signs in Uniondale only proves to substantiate and exasperate the overwhelming sense of exclusion. So we do need welcome signs. We do appreciate the streetscaping that is forthcoming, but it would be nice to have welcome signs. You know, if you go down Front Street, right in the underpass, there's a beautiful welcome sign for East Meadow. Okay, so kudos to that, but Uniondale needs and deserves welcome signs as well. It enhances the community identity. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jacobs.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I do not have any other slips on the administrative calendar. Is there anybody else who'd like to be heard? No, that's public comment. This is just on the administrative calendar. Public comment is when we talk about any other items. All right, so Madam Clerk, can you,
Except for the ones that have been taken off, right? We voted on the one that was sick.
all right, Madam Clerk, will you please call roll on items 8 through 73 with the exceptions of
32, 53, and 54.
32, 53, and 54.
Okay.
Councilman Ambrosino?
I didn't move it yet. Who moved? You moved it? Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Councilman Ambrosino?
Aye, except on item 17 on Cherokee.
Councilman Blakeman?
Aye, and I want to congratulate Mary Ann Hansen. I'm voting for her in spite of the fact that her son is Timothy Sullivan.
Well, she didn't get, we didn't all vote yet, just you. That doesn't do it.
Councilman Diaz-Pasito?
Aye.
Councilman Dunn?
Aye.
Councilwoman King Sweeney?
Aye, and once again, congratulations, Marianne.
Senior Councilwoman Gooseby?
Aye, congratulations, Mary Ann.
And Supervisor Gillen?
I vote aye, except on item number 29, on which I recuse myself because EAC Network was a former client of mine at my old law firm. I also vote no on item 73. I believe there is a conflict there, but that's something I will take up with the board after this, but I do vote no on item number 73.
I thought we voted for that already. I already voted no on that. Did we vote no on the report?
We voted no to add it to the calendar.
Okay, well, I vote. I'm with.
You want to change your vote?
Yeah, make it no. Yeah, on that one.
Councilwoman's changing her vote.
73. The senior councilwoman has changed her vote on item number 73, and your vote is?
What's 70?
No? Senior councilwoman? Yes.
What's 70?
All right, may I have a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
Happy 4th of July.
Happy 4th.
Madam Clerk, will you call the roll on the motion to adjourn?
Councilman Ambrosino. Councilman Blakeman.
Aye.
Councilman Diaz-Pazito.
Aye.
Councilman Dunn.
Aye.
Councilwoman King Sweeney. Senior Councilwoman Guzdi. Supervisor Gillen.
Aye. That concludes our administrative calendar. We'll now move into public comment. Felix Tapachi?
Felix Procacci, 1165 Bowman Street, Franklin Square, New York. I just want to reiterate again that the vote on item number 50 regarding that calling it a hearing is for the free air thing is illegal because it doesn't comply with state law. Anyway, we voted on a resolution regarding the hours for elected officials. Councilman Diaz-Pazito, 18.36 hours for 6 days per month for 6-hour days. If you do the math, that comes out to 108 hours per month. And then if that's 10% of his work day, then you calculate 972 hours per month. If you divide that by 24, it comes out to 40.5 days per month. So that's physically not possible unless you're using a different calendar on a different planet. So this is clearly fraudulent because there is no way he can work 90% of his time unless he's working 3-hour days at the Board of Elections, and I don't know what that is. Then it may come out to a number that is reasonable, but you can't work 40.5 hours per month. Anyway, so I would hope that since we're all on the up and up on the law, at least everyone argues with me over that, let somebody bring this up.
You're calculating on a
40.5 days per month in order for him to work 90% of his time at the board.
But is that based on an 8-hour day?
6-hour day.
6 hours. I can tell you very, very honestly and openly that I don't think there's any member of this town board that works a 40-hour week. It includes nights and weekends. I see all my colleagues out. Sometimes we work 80-hour weeks. So I think your calculation is based on a false premise.
Okay. 18 hours, 18 days per month, 6-hour days according to the resolution we passed. Do the math, 100 hours per month. Diaz-Pazito's comment that it's 10% of his time, multiply that by 972 hours, divide by 24, 40.5 days per month. That's the end of it. That's the end of it. Put it in writing. Put it in writing. Please put it in writing.
I don't interrupt you.
You interrupt me all the time. I wish you just shut up.
That's based on a
Please, please.
Felix, please be respectful.
If he keeps quiet, I will.
I'm not going to guarantee that.
Okay. Also, a while back, I brought up FRICAM's qualifications per the town law. Joe Rod told me to look into the civil service law. I looked at the civil service law. It refers to the law that I already referred to. So therefore, Supervisor Gillen said she was going to research it. I haven't received anything in writing. I don't want to hear any conversation. I just want in writing that this is okay, because all the documents I've received, and I've studied this extensively, show that I'm correct. Now, I could still be wrong, but nobody will give me anything in writing. Nobody will give me anything in writing that shows that I'm wrong. Also, the $5 building department thing, there is a advisory opinion from the Committee on Open Government that says that it's illegal. Okay? Once again, another illegal thing. The $5 per copy in the building department. Get rid of it.
Mr. Rock, can we look into this after this meeting just to see if we're in compliance with the code that Mr. Procacci said? You and I can discuss
I've
that.
answered this 100 times. We feel that we're in compliance with the law.
There's an advisory opinion from the Committee on Open Government that says you're not. But anyway, once again, also you're in violation of the ethics law as far as I searched the website.
Let me interrupt you.
No, please don't talk. All of the financial disclosures.
I'm trying to help you feel.
No, you never help me. The financial disclosures are still not on the website. I searched this morning. Maybe they're hidden somewhere, but still, that's also.
I don't believe they are posted. I did make inquiries to see what the status is of the redaction because I do want to see those posted and we should just move along with the redaction. How are you doing, Mr. Amarini?
We have scanned approximately 2/3 of the documents. And
Stand by the microphone.
And of that, we have already redacted about half of those.
How quickly do we think we can get the balance of the documents redacted so we can get them on the website?
Less than 2 weeks.
Okay.
Okay, so it was still in violation of the ethics law by 2 months now. Okay, so that's, once again, there's no penalty, that's so you can keep on violating the law indefinitely. So, you know, this is basically the problem. Also, there's a broken link. There's a link to the legal fees on the town's website. I click on the link and it says the page you were looking for is not found. I wish we would fix that. It would be nice to have. That's only part of the problem. We have to justify our lawsuits is another thing. Again, when is the town going to update the ethics code? It's very simple, Laura. Very simple. I brought this up in January. You were only in office a few weeks. Now it's 6 months. Put 2 sentences in that I gave you. I sent them to you. It's very simple. Let them vote against it. They're all ethical, so they wouldn't care, because all it does is provide transparency. All my sentences do is give the residents a right to make a legitimate complaint and have require the ethics board to give a written response detailing why that person is wrong or right in their complaint. Now, you're all ethical, so you have no problem with that. Put their feet to the fire and make them vote on it. It's not rocket science.
Thank you, Felix. I have drafted a proposed amended ethics code, which I will be sharing with the board and working on the board with to hopefully move forward towards resolution.
It's a foundation. It was necessary to have that up front going forward. Before you go forward with legislation, you should have a proper ethics code so things don't go awry, and things this year have gone awry in many fronts, the Woodley Club, the free air law, and a lot of other things. If you had the ethics code up front, that would be a barrier from things going crazy here. Because things go crazy because the people cannot fight back, because we don't have any mechanism to fight back, except filing lawsuits we can't afford to fight.
Mary Ellen Craig.
Thank you, Mary Ellen Craig, 436 Locust Avenue, Uniondale. As far as the climate smart pledge, I'm hoping that the Sierra Club member will be assigned to the Planning and Advisory Committee, and let us know when those meetings will be taking place, please. Also, I saw an Asplund truck over at the A. Holly Patterson property, and I'm concerned that that alley of beautiful trees, mature trees, might be fated to be removed, and I'm hoping that the town will protect the really beautiful, healthy trees. Do you know if anything's been done as far as a tree survey or, working with anyone?
On the Holly and Patterson community, I can look into that for you. Thank you.
It would really be a shame to have all those trees removed. And my compliments on the 2 items I mentioned last month, last meeting. The grass was cut on their property, and the street was, Back Street, Maple Grove, and Walnut were both resurfaced, and they look great, so thank you very much.
Thank you. Rory Gordon?
Thank you.
What training board? I'm sorry. What'd you call?
I called Rory Gordon.
That's you.
I'm sorry.
Can I go to the ladies?
Mr. Donovan, I have a question for you. Did you receive a document from the Committee on Open Government?
Did I receive a document in my office? No, I did not. I haven't seen it. Perhaps someone in my office did. Is this the document that's being circulated now?
Yeah, I didn't get a copy for you because I just assumed that you got it. It was CC'd to you and it was CC'd to Joe Rock. It's going to clear up what Felix was discussing before. It's an advisory opinion. I wrote to the Committee on Open Government. It is clear that you are violating state law. It's also clear that the use of cell phones, cameras, and any other form of photography is not permitted in the building department area. You're violating state law by charging $5, regardless of the size, and the copies thereafter, $2. It's very, very detailed. I spoke to Santino 3 times. Laura, I spoke to you, this is now the 3rd time. Nothing has been done about it. Mr. Rock, it was CC'd to you. Mr. Rock, hello? Stop the clock.
Stop the clock, he's busy.
My clock is still ticking. Is there any way, Laura, you can stop the clock?
Okay, just stop the clock, Nancy, please. So I just did ask Mr. Ra, I apologize, you asked me to look into this, and I will say that I didn't follow up, and I should have followed up, and I will look into this further. And I just asked Mr. Ra to look into it to make sure that we are in compliance. And I did not get this letter, but I'll take a look at it.
This is very serious, Laura. I mean, you are ripping off the not you personally, the town of Hempstead is ripping off the constituents, and they're doing it every single day. And I don't understand why you have an ethics law and you do nothing to enforce it. Zippo. What's the point of the ethics law? You guys are breaking the law. It's very clear. You're an attorney. Did you read it? Did you look at it?
I don't believe I saw it.
Well, it's addressed to you, Mr. Joe Ra, town attorney.
I get hundreds and hundreds of things a week. I probably didn't see this one yet.
Since June 20th?
Yeah, sure.
That's really sad. It's really sad. I mean, how many times do we have to come up here? Now, here's the proof, Laura. You always say, give me the proof. Here's the proof. I hope you do something about it because this is a serious infraction. And as Felix said, the only thing that we have is to file an Article 78. But here's your government saying that what you are doing is illegal. So I plan on going up to the building department and I'm going to get some documents, Mr. Ra, and I'm going to photograph them with my camera today when I leave here. I'm just letting you all be aware that that is what I am doing. And according to this document, it is perfectly legal. And I don't need to take it out. I'm not taking it out on you. You understand that. I'm talking to you as a board. I'm talking to you as a township. You guys pass an ethic law that means absolutely nothing because you don't enforce it and there's no penalty whatsoever. Nothing. You just get away with things until somebody takes you to court. Okay. Couple of quick things. I've asked you this before. When an employee speaks, that gentleman that just got up, Amarini?
Mr. Amarini.
Mr. Amarini, okay. He's got to speak into the microphone because when we go back and we watch the tape, you cannot hear what he says. And nobody should have any special privilege just because you work here and you're an attorney doesn't mean you can't sit down in front of this microphone. Mr. Rodkamp has to come up here and speak into the mic. Everybody's got to speak into the mic. And this is for you, Laura. I don't know if you're aware of this, but since I've been involved with the town, I watch every single video that's produced. Who is the person that actually produces the video when you went to the beach?
The video, which video when I went to the beach? The at Point Lookout talking about rip current, our communications office.
Who is that? Is it your people?
It's the people who work in the communications office.
Were they here before you got here?
Yes.
You know, Laura, I've watched every single video. They make you look like a jerk. You're actually on, I'm sorry, being honest with you. Are we ready yet? Should I start? They didn't edit it out. It's not the first time. Do you know that not one of Santino's videos is like that? Not one person that sits on this board is like that. But your videos, they intentionally make you look bad. You probably don't even know that because you're too busy to watch the video. I get them on my phone. It's the first thing I do as soon as I see a video from the town of Hempstead. And that's sad that they do this little insignificant shit. But it makes you look bad. So
I didn't see that, but thank you for making me aware of that.
Oh, it's
there were some issues with the microphones.
Just to interrupt for 1 second, I didn't see the one that you're talking about in question, but I know that the supervisor and I have done some videos together. I think you look great in the videos, especially on our recent boat ride.
I'm not talking about beach ones that are particularly challenging with the wind.
Oh, Erin, no, it's not the way she looks. It's the way they edit it. You wouldn't find it amusing if they did that to you.
I have no idea what was done to me or not. I never watched the videos of myself, but I'm sure if there is some unequal editing, we can correct that.
Absolutely.
Not the first time.
Thank you.
And I did bring it up once before. Okay, thanks, guys. And you will look into this, won't you?
Thank you, yes we will.
Rodkamp too.
Yeah, Rod Camp too.
Professor
If I may, real quick, I'm sorry, but there is really no problem with anyone. If you have an issue with policy, this is, you have 6 seconds, but if there's an issue with policy, if there's an issue with something that you have a problem with government, but can we lay off attacking people personally? I mean, it's unnecessary. If you don't like the way that they're acting in their capacity, I get it. If you don't think that they're running their office correctly, I get it. But to attack people personally, it's not needed. We don't attack you personally.
When somebody is in a position that they don't have the credentials for and it's against the law, how do you feel as a constituent when they are not doing the right thing? The town's not doing the right thing. Ms. Esposito, let me ask you this question. When there's a situation and a building burns down and 10 people die, who do they look to first? The building department, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And when they find out that the commissioner doesn't have the credentials to be the commissioner, I have nothing against him personally.
It does sound like that, though.
I don't!
Well, it sounds like that.
Well, today he was a little aggressive, but
We have people telling council people to shut up. I mean, what goes on here?
I don't tell you.
I didn't say it was you. I'm saying in general.
It was me over
I think
here.
we need to tighten things up a little bit. Let's stop going after people personally. Let's stop telling people to shut up. If we have issues that we want to discuss about policy, about government, we're here, right? It's public comment. We're here to listen. But let's lay off the personal attacks on people.
You're not doing anything. See, what I'm saying is, let's do something before they hold this.
And all I'm saying is, please stop attacking people personally. So we both said our piece. Happy 4th of July.
And I hope nobody gets hurt. Because you guys will have another lawsuit.
Professor Asher J. Mathias.
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 That's right, thank you. With 12 more academia with me, I, as a liberal Republican, it was my joy to campaign for you and to assist and celebrate your victory.
Thank you, Professor.
All other Republicans will find similar state of affairs this coming fall. I'm a liberal Republican of the Javits era, not the Javits of the center, but there was a living human being who helped me when I ran for assemblyman. I'm sorry that Bruce, my friend, is not here because one of the, I hope not fatal decisions you made early in your administration was to appoint him deputy. I objected and I said so. Mr. Ambrosio, where is it? I congratulate you for routinely, by rote, saying the Pledge of Allegiance without the meaning of we pledge to the United States of America, not to a person and not to a cult. And this is the eve of the 4th of July. I'm a naturalized citizen. Lady Liberty in New York is crying of what is happening to our country in the southern border. It's shameful. It's embarrassing. So let us take some time tomorrow to reflect and let us pray that this abomination, this cruelty soon end. But I'm here on a happy note for Mr. Esposito and Mr. Blakeman intervention on an issue, it's called TH 081/18, which would be, I'm sure, on the calendar next month. However, because I received confirmation that we are going ahead with the issue of rescinding the alternate side, no parking for Tuesdays and Thursdays, 10 to 12, for reasons that are plain, meaning the sweepers do not take care of the sweeping, because we do it, and it's inconvenient. I'd like to thank, in this very brief statement that I have forwarded to and posted on my Facebook page, with the title, Citizens Direct Action at its Best. More than 3 decades ago, residents of our block, a street of West Broadway, not a road, initiated a petition to have alternate side parking suspended for 2 hours every Tuesday and Thursday. However, this has not worked out, and we proceeded, again, with all humility, I initiated this, and it was received unanimously, as far as I can tell. There were a couple of houses that I repeatedly knocked on and could not find answers. I want to underline the special commendations to Tom and Matt of Esposito's office. Inspector Thomas DeSiglio, you're familiar with him, he really came through. And Councilman, yes, Blakeman, he has done some good work occasionally. This is an example of how a mature democracy works at the local level. Decent people must surely lament that our state and national leaderships lack in respecting and observing such essence of self-determination. Thank you. I really, really hope to see you again, and I can be more positive about the state of our nation. I cry. This is distressful, extremely so. Thank you. And you have to voice your similar passionate rejection of Trumpism and his ilk. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. Joanne Gordon.
That's you.
Joanne, I want to show my appreciation for your affection for me and keeping me here so long. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, yes.
Not anymore, but my name is Joanne Gordon, 76 Gilbert Place, North Woodmere, New York, and I'm here today to request the inclusion of gender identity and gender expression in the employment opportunity policies, which are now exclusive of anybody that is not mentioned. Gender identity refers to people, am I talking too loud?
You're just fine, I think.
It refers to people whose gender varies from the physical indications of their sex. People, such people are referred to as transgender people. Gender expression includes non-transgender and even heterosexual people whose outward expression or behavior does not meet the expectations of their sex. Anti-discrimination policies and laws are important because many people live in constant fear of losing their job simply because they were born with a little understood birth variation of transgenderism. Medical scientists agree transgenderism is a birth variation similar to left-handedness and green eyes. An anti-discrimination policy in the town of Hempstead is important because a local law carries a strong moral message. Federal, state, and county laws are dictated by people in a faraway place in a distant city. A local law involves your neighbors. People you pass in the street and in the supermarket telling you what is right and what is wrong. Nothing is more powerful than you, local people, telling your constituents that harmful discrimination is wrong. I am requesting a reinforcement of an American principle. Thomas Jefferson said, every human being born on this continent has a right to equal, indeed identical treatment in the machine of the law. We need the power of your voice, saying it is wrong, morally wrong, to discriminate against any of God's children. Aside from the protection from harmful discrimination in employment, the addition of our policy that I request will have a more meaningful impact on local people. It will carry a powerful moral message that harmful discrimination is not tolerated by your neighbors in Hempstead. Therefore, I requested all documents that make reference to age, race, color, religion, etc. include the words gender identity and gender expression.
Thank you, Ms. Gordon. I appreciate your comments. It's something that we can discuss as a board. I myself am proud to have been an early volunteer for Gay Men's Health Crisis. It's always been a cause that's very important to me to make sure that there's no discrimination of any sort like that. I'm proud to be working with Councilwoman King-Sweeney on putting forward a bill to address any kind of harassment or discrimination in the town of Hempstead. We take your matters very your points very seriously, and I will be glad to discuss them with the board as well. I'm also glad to have been here to be for the first time ever to see the pride flag raised at the town of Hempstead, and what was actually quite a fun celebration with our cowboy from the Village People singing. It was distracting for a lot of the traffic going by, but it was a great moment in the town of Hempstead. So thank you for your comments.
Okay, I would like to add that although I I've followed, and this council has followed, and the people who wrote the charter followed, what our founding fathers ended up doing, I presume, of limiting who is able to vote, who is not discriminated against. We did it for women, we did it for black people, which is wrong. We're limiting it by every time we mention race, creed, religion, etc. We're limiting it. I mean, I'm speaking, I'm working for transgender people because I am a transgender woman. But I shouldn't really be following what our forefathers started. We should just eliminate every limitation in our policy, eliminate race, religion, everything else, and just say people, like Thomas Jefferson. That's a human being. I see I have 10 seconds left. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Heidi Sack. Willeen Jacobs. Diane Madden.
Diane Madden, Hempstead. You had said earlier there's no room for politics regarding Camp Anchor. I couldn't agree more that that sentiment should be true for the animal shelter as well. And probably the biggest problem there is that it is all political. I would say fairly, probably 90%, including that $3 million political budget. What I'd like to find out what is going on with the RFPs now that Laura Garber has decided that the town's just not serious enough to put in a professional and get everything back on track. What is going on with the RFPs as far as a trainer?
I think we're putting out a new RFP, hoping that we can find somebody.
Any idea when?
We're working on it. I don't know. I'd be happy to get back to you with that answer.
Regarding volunteers, some are suspended, I'm being told, left and right. Not just any volunteers, the ones that go home and cook chicken and rice for the sickest and in most need animals, the ones that make blankets, the ones that drive all kinds of funds into the shelter that the shelter budget is not providing for, which it should be. Are you aware of these issues personally?
If you have a complaint against about some specific incident, please put it in writing. I'd be happy to look into it for you.
The groups that your administration was supposed to get in touch with, all of the rescue groups that are still not welcome, still not comfortable, coming into the shelter and saving animals, and I'm specifically talking about animals in need of rescue, not the one-year-old husky that was sent to rescue that had applications, but the animals that are truly in need of rescue. Are you aware that your administration has still not gotten in touch with all of these organizations?
We welcome any rescues to work with us, and I'm really delighted to announce that we met with North Shore Animal League about 2 weeks ago. And we spoke with the director at North Shore, and she had stopped being interested in doing rescues in Hempstead, and she's now reconsidering that position.
Okay. Have you thought about duplicating any of their policies? I thought that meeting was to review some improvements that could be made.
We had great discussions about policies and also about grant opportunities.
Okay, so there'll be some change in some policies and procedures there?
So we're looking at that right now, yes.
Okay, because you have a tremendous amount of bite cases now, returns coming in, there are some real problems there that need to be addressed. Many of them can be addressed having a real behaviorist on board that's lacking tremendously. That is the foundation of the animal shelter, and that is where a lot of the problems are coming from. That the volunteers are not being trained properly, that the staff is not being trained properly, and that as an outcome of that, volunteers are being suspended for things that are really not necessarily their fault. They're there just to help and save these animals. I think you should, as a person that supports volunteers, look into specifics and speak to some of these volunteers that are either still being stalked, harassed, suspended, uncomfortable about being there, what's going on, because apparently it's not being taken care of. It's still ongoing. There was also a situation with cats on, I understand, I'm not quite sure of the town, but certainly within Hempstead, where at least 20 cats came from a hoarding situation, I believe. Garden City. So what concerns me is that, and I made this clear during meetings with Supervisor Santino, who, after he found out, he immediately resolved the situation with a signature, well, actually it's an asset forfeiture fund with the district attorney. In any of these cases, none of these animals should be going into the animal shelter. There is a fund with the district attorney. That fund should be utilized, and in this case, it certainly should be utilized. These cats should not enter into a shelter where they can't even handle the cats that they have, where these cats are in jeopardy every day of the week. There's no need for this to happen.
I'd be happy to look into that.
And
Mr. Rod, do you know about this fund? Or Mr. Marino?
I'm sorry, I didn't know.
Mr. Rod, you and I sat at meetings when there was a big press conference, and that's what brought the conversation on when we had that meeting, that all of these puppies went into the town of Hempstead Animal Shelter when it was already overcrowded, and you were there when, at the time, Supervisor Santino agreed that the asset fund would be utilized, and it was.
Okay, but I was there when you had that conversation, but I have nothing to do with the implementation of any of that. I just happened to be present at a meeting when you and the supervisor spoke about it.
But you understand that fund exists?
Yes.
Ms. Madden, if you, after the meeting, would give us a little bit more information about that fund, I'd be happy to look into that further.
Certainly, thank you. As far as the work that's being done by Councilman D'Esposito, I genuinely thank you for what you're doing, working with advocates, and you can expect those responses shortly. I think it's a great thing. I mean, in comparison, it's starting to look like we were working as one big happy family in comparison to what's going on here now. And I look forward to continuing that effort and hoping that you'll set this foundation for other council people to duplicate. Thank you.
Stuart Kroll.
Good afternoon. Stu Kroll, Great Neck. I'm also going to be talking about the shelter. Before I get to my main point, which I promise will be entertaining, I do want to say a few words about the conditions of the shelter. I've now been there 3 times in the last 3 weeks. I saw 3 dogs being walked the last time. I've yet to see an employee walk a dog. I'm sure there's some reason why they can't, but I've never seen it. As far as the outside exercise pens, they're maybe a third larger than their cages, and I saw a few dogs in there. There's one actually nice run, a long run with a little water, I guess, for them there. I've never seen a dog in it. You know, I have no idea why. Maybe we can cut down next year on the $10,000 outlay for uniforms and use some of it to enhance their exercise area. Also, there are dozens of cats being caged. Maybe we can also put them in free roaming areas. Let's see, okay, before we get on to, let's see, I won't even talk about what happened to Luna. I want to briefly go over what happened to 2 dogs. It seems like there's been one situation every week, you know, going on over there. I mean, it's really astonishing. The first dog, Chaos, escaped from his owner in Freeport a few weeks ago. The dog was 10 years old and microchipped. The owners looked for the dog a few times at the shelter. They were told it wasn't there. Only when a police report apparently came in that they acknowledged the dog was there. And the dog had escaped, I think, 4 times from what I was told over 10 years, and the shelter said they were posting it was 8 times, it was 10 times. Anyway, the dog was never checked for a chip. It was hidden in the back under a different name, with the age apparently changed to 2 years old. Apparently it was earmarked for a favored rescue out east. I won't mention the woman's name. Anyway, first of all, whoever didn't bother to look for a chip should be severely disciplined. That's beyond incompetence. If the vet, whether it was Siegel or anybody else, mistook the age of a dog by 8 years, I mean, I'm certainly not a vet, but I wouldn't make a mistake by 8 years. He should probably go back to the first year of vet school, or whoever did that. That's beyond incompetence. Finally, the dog was returned to its rightful owner, which would never have happened without public outcry. Next, we get on to Bella. She was brought in about 10 days ago. Also, before I say that, there was a woman, one of the women that was there, not the owner, is a friend of mine, and the owners were upset surrendering it. One of the volunteers, whose name I won't mention, at the shelter immediately put up a post that the owners were hysterical laughing when the dog was surrendered. And of course, the rescue that got that dog has been running with that ever since. They immediately put up that the owners were hysterical laughing. There were numerous applications seeking this dog. I was there the day that this all happened with the dog. I left there at about 1:30. At that point, I think it was last Wednesday or Thursday, the dog had yet to have been spayed. From what I understand now, it's been spayed because it couldn't be released without being spayed or neutered. The next thing I found out, it was in Philadelphia at a rescue later on that evening. Now, I know with cats, you can't release a cat that's been spayed. It's got to have a day or two, a minimum of a day for recuperation. So assuming the same thing is true with dogs, this dog must have immediately been spayed, put in a car for a nice 3 or 4 hour car ride, to Philadelphia. So anybody that would sign off on that medically, again, you should go back to vet school. Let's see. Okay, by the way, I also know somebody with a rescue out east recently tried to adopt a dog. They didn't allow him to adopt a dog. I know Little Shelter, I ran into the people the other day that run Little Shelter. They still can't get in there. They don't want to deal with, with the Hempstead Town Shelter anymore. And the last I heard, Pets for Love also can't deal with the shelter anymore. Okay, let's see. These continued and very disturbing incidents that have occurred during the past month have occurred under the leadership of Mike Pastore. There are at least 5 lawsuits against the town shelter, naming him specifically. I contacted, without saying who, one of the assistants to the council people here today and asked that a resolution be put forth to remove Mr. Pastore. I think there's enough going on that he should either union protections or not, he should be either removed permanently or he should be transferred. Okay? I didn't get any response to that, which of course I didn't figure to, so I'd like to know if anybody here would like to put forth a resolution now, while we're all here, to remove him.
I'd just like to let you know that several months ago, I circulated a memo to the council people asking them to weigh in and would they support moving Mr. Pastore out of the animal shelter. I have never had any response from any of them. So the people that you thank are people who have not responded to moving Mr. Pastore out of the animal shelter.
We're all here now. Would anybody like to propose a resolution? I'd like everybody to go on record either supporting his removal, or wanting him to stay there. I'm listening. If anybody wants to say something. Okay, I guess nobody wants to say anything.
I think if, go ahead, Henry, I'm sorry. I think if I may, I think there's a little bit more to this than sending out a memo and asking if we could remove someone from their spot. I think this involves civil service. It involves litigation that could possibly be going on. So I think it's a little bit more than just distributing a memo and saying aye and getting rid of someone.
And as I made very clear, Mr. Pastore and his lawyer both want to move out of the animal shelter, and the union president asked me to move him out of the animal shelter. So I made that very clear in the memo. So there are some legal issues, but Mr. Pastore's counsel signed on.
The worst that can happen.
And the union president signed on. And I asked all of the people on the town board and circulated a memo asking them if they would support this and move him out of the animal shelter, and no one has responded. So I haven't cut off any discussions. Mr. Diaz-Casito has chosen not to discuss the topic.
Just to follow up on my side, I think this is a sensitive employee matter that's not appropriate for a public forum, and Richard Gina, who's the counsel to the town board, would be happy to speak to you offline and to share with you whatever information he's able to, and I don't think it's a simple issue of us not responding to a memo. I can tell you that I'm never quiet. I voice my opinions all the time. I'm trying to do it in an appropriate way to protect the employees and to protect the town of Hempstead.
Okay, well, all I can say is the incompetence there, and we'll call it quote-unquote corruption, really borderline criminality, which gets me to my last point, which is simply that this past, I've seen enough of this already. I mean, it's really tiresome, to be honest with you.
Excuse me, Mr. Kroll, can I just interrupt you? I'm sorry for 1 second. So can we now agree that we can discuss this, Councilman Diaz-Casito? Can we discuss moving Mr. Pastore? Can you stop ignoring me and actually respond?
I'd be happy to have a discussion.
Okay, it took a couple of months, but great, now we can have a discussion. Thank you for bringing that up.
Okay, can I finish now? Oh, thank you. So I think that as long as the board agrees and we can discuss it together, I think it would be great. But obviously, can I finish? I know you're looking to attack, but if you could give me 1 second. As you mentioned, it's not only I know you mentioned that the person that they're thanking, which
Can I just say one thing?
But no, I'd like to finish
This
this
is a
story.
special session. We really should not be doing this.
I'd still like to defend what I had to say. And you mentioned that the individual that they're thanking hasn't responded, but really none of the rest of the board hasn't responded either. So obviously, perhaps it's a discussion that we're having amongst each other. Okay, so I think that maybe that's the next step, is that we can talk as a caucus, have a discussion and move forward. To attack each other on the dais here, I'm not really sure where that gets us, but now that the conversation is open, I'm sure Erin will get the caucus together and we'll have a discussion about the memo. So we look forward to it.
Because you sit there happy to watch people attack me for not removing Mr. Pastore when I invited this discussion, and you sit there and smile and nod your head when you have done nothing to move this forward. So I'm glad now that we can get the commitment of the board to move forward on this issue, which I raised several months ago, and I'd be happy to circulate that memo again.
Well, the last point I want to make, which is really what I came up to say, is that as far as I'm concerned, basically the recent activity at the shelter, I mean, it's incompetence bordering on criminality, and as such, this past Friday, I went down to the district attorney and filed a complaint against Hobos alleging criminality. All right, thank you.
Mita Meredith?
Meet J. Mary Walton, resident. Okay, starting out with, first of all, way to go, supervisor. All right. I can at least keep hope alive. I can keep hope alive. Looking at this as far as talking about funding, and one of the issues that we always talk about is having programs and getting the funding for them, and being an avid reader of Newsday, and one day they may actually do a real story on me. I don't know when that's going to happen, but I've been written in there before, so it's all good. Where we see the governor is putting out $11 million for Maria survivors, and the gentleman that previously spoke about the atrocious conditions that are taking place with the migrant children in New York State. We do have a responsibility for the children in Mexico, but we also have a responsibility for the survivors and for the plight of those residents in the Caribbean, particularly in Puerto Rico, and those countries that have still been devastated. But hey, we have residents here that are still devastated with regard to Sandy. But if we're looking at this $11 million, it just boggles my mind that because of the numbers of people that we have in this township that have relatives or are putting up survivors from Maria, that we as a town have not taken advantage or not included in this $11 million. So I just continue to not understand why we seem to be isolated from the resources that are out there to help what that experience is, as we say, the least of us. So that's one particular issue. Nice photo of you with the shelling out $400,000 for the hatchery. All about that type of process and innovative and industries in this area. But once again, I would like to see this type of initiative and incentive and investment and infusion and involvement as it pertains to doing something for our veterans. It's, again, more widespread than supporting these parades and approving the fireworks displays. Let's try to get some of that done. Training firm signed with Long Island nonprofit. Again, if we can get training, and there's much needed training for this township, we still have not, I haven't seen anything specific that deals with bullying, that deals with the fact that we have a limited support staff. Say what you want, call it what you will. To have one person and a part-time person handling 40,000 veterans in the township, to me, is still a major disgrace. So if we can sign on to do some training so that all of town employees are knowledgeable about the needs as well as the benefits, the rights and privileges of all of our veterans, we can go a lot further than, let's thank them and celebrate them on those designated holidays. Because let's talk about what happens, those suicide rates that spike, the domestic violence and the substance abuse rates that spike after these celebrations are over. So let's kind of look at that. Downtown Baldwin, great seeing this rendering in Huntington Station with the developer and the pictures, and we still have bupkis for what we're paying our taxes for in Baldwin. And I know, as far as I know, there's still a developer that's on the hook. Residents want to know what's going on. I brought up earlier with regard to another VA chief leaving July 12th, and all the atrocities that I've also mentioned that have taken place at Northport VA Hospital that don't seem to change, and how the veterans that were living in the male-only shelter had to be relocated because that building was toxic, and it had been toxic for decades. So again, we talk about how we're spending money and doing all these things, but we're not doing the basic things as it pertains to our veterans. Islanders pitch plans for Coliseum renovation. Just curious as to how the town is working with its county with regard to projects that are going to be beneficial to residents, jobs, contracts, procurements, things of that nature. We're talking about the animal shelter. Has anybody visited the town of Babylon and their new state-of-the-art shelter?
I did speak with the supervisor there, and he said if he has room, he can also maybe help with some of our sheltered animals, and we have to look into that. But it is a beautiful facility, and certainly I think we'd all like to try to get some money together, grant money to help our shelter and its growing capacity.
And I think you've got a viable resource right here. They're here all the time. The animal shelter, they have this group, this contingent here that's definitely supportive of you. This would be an opportunity to rally those resources so that they can do maybe other things. Maybe be at the shelter to be with those animals as opposed to being here trying to definitely put up a valiant fight for them. $39 million to study wind energy. Okay, I even feel like I'm blowing a lot of hot air here to keep everybody at the same level. But if we could get a piece of this $39 million, I mean, just to do research to understand the dynamics of the veteran community here in the town of Hempstead, then we can better serve them. We can determine what programs and resources, but we don't even know the makeup, the composition of veterans here. So if we can get $39 million to study the wind, okay, let's try to reduce my hot air here so that we can focus on that, okay? Like I said, lastly, the town seeks to upgrade senior apartments. This project that's going on in Franklin Square, I mean, if we're talking about demolishing a building that has housing and has a community center, are you talking to developers about making sure that there's some inclusion for housing for veterans, for veteran couples, so that it's accommodating veterans or veteran couples or senior citizens who have physical challenges, you know, things of that nature, as opposed to let's just see how we can make this cost effective for the developer. Last but not least, serving a noble purpose. Program trains bartenders to identify forms of sexual assault and violence. Again, an innovative program, a nonprofit that's kind of teaming up with bars. These are the types of things that, you know, the residents are looking for our elected officials, not to mention the people who are on the payroll who are making more money than most of the residents who are paying these taxes. Let's start looking at those things. These are the type of ideas that we expect and anticipate. And lastly, as I said earlier, if you're going to represent the various constituency groups in the township, be respectful of them. I cannot mention enough the embarrassment of being at the Caribbean event and looking at the flyer and to see someone's country misspelled. That is just the height. How would you like somebody to give something to you and it had untidy states or untied states as opposed to the United States of America? I've spent summers in Trinidad and Tobago. I know how Trinidad is spelled. I've been to the island country of Barbados. Even when you say it phonetically, it is B-A-R-B-A-D-O-S, not B-A-R-D-A-D-O-S. And it's the United States Virgin Islands. It's a property of this country. Residents on that country gave their lives in service of this country. If you're going to list British Virgin Islands, say United States Virgin Islands. Again, if you're going to have people who are going to represent the constituents of this township, they should represent and understand and get to know the constituents of this township. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephanie Capuano.
Stephanie Capuano, Montauk. So, in response to what you said before about ousting the director, how does a resolution get made here? How can you make it into a resolution? What is the process?
The protocol for putting forward a resolution?
Yes.
Mr. Raw, would you like to describe the process a little bit?
Generally, it would come from the department head. In this case, in other cases, it would come from the Human Resources Department.
So you can't just make a resolution since everybody he wants to leave and it's union director.
I'm not going to discuss any specific person. There are processes.
Complicated, yeah. So is the process being started or initiated at all?
I'm not going to discuss personnel issues.
Why not? Okay, because well, how long does it take if he wants to leave?
When you say he, I don't know, I assume I know what you're referring to, but I'm not going to discuss any particular issue
Okay, well, listen.
with any particular employee. Generally, I'm going to give it to you again. It can either start with the department head, or it could start with a request from a person asking for a transfer. Those are two of the ways. There are some others also.
She can't just ask for a resolution for this? Put it in as a resolution?
It depends on what your civil service status is.
Oh, okay. So it's a process. All right, we can't discuss it, so I guess, I don't know. Just wait to see what happens. I don't know.
Yeah, I've asked to continue the discussion about how to address the situation, and so now it seems like we can move forward because council members have
Thank you
agreed.
very much for that, and everybody here, thank you. You know, we come every week, and we already heard, and I thank you. We wouldn't be coming every week, and those girls especially. So if it wasn't important to us, and you're hearing us, and I thank you finally. You know, I mean, it's great. And I have another problem. Always problems. So for animal welfare, you know, there's a special place, you know, for people that abuse animals, babies, whatever. And the situation that I'm in now is I try to rescue, so I've rescued so many lately with injuries, broken pelvises, from car accidents to everything. And I like to do that, so it's part of a community help. And where I am right now, this particular community has had a lot of cats. It was an issue, and I didn't know it until they were dumped at Jones Beach, where I tried to contain them, which has worked. So I'm over here in this area, and I want to rescue them. I've taken out several last year, 15, which was hard, cats and kittens, and I've gotten harassed by people. And last night in particular, one of the feeders we had to call the cops because, you know, they think we're doing God's work. They're really nice and they're supportive, but I'm scared because this one neighbor came running out, attacking this one girl, and said, "Do not feed the cats," and with their fixed. So I'm removing them. I'm spending a lot of money, but I want to get them out of there because several were poisoned. And it's kind of pretty sad, you know, to know that these innocent animals were poisoned. I mean, that's illegal. They threatened to shoot them. All right, so I have to get them out. So I called the town of Hempstead, and they're closed. During 2 weeks, there was a vet that was on vacation. So I wasn't able to bring them in last week. And this week, it's a holiday, so I wasn't able to bring them in really this week, I was told on the phone. And so I'm asking is there any way that they can have additional help during those times when somebody's on vacation? Because now I have to wait, and I'm getting harassed every day. I really just want to get out of there. I really do. I just want to get the cats and get out. That's what I'm doing. Even though they're allowed, they're strict, they're free roaming, they're fixed, they're not going to harm anybody. They can spray water in the backyards. Cats won't come in the backyards. He doesn't want to do that. All he wants to do is try to shoot them or poison them. So I'm just trying to help. So I want to get them out, and I called the town, and They have a lock on Mondays, I can't get an appointment until August. And I do have extra help, a girl that will help me on Sunday night, but I don't want to keep them in traps too long, so I try to time it where I could just bring them right to the shelter the next morning. So I'm just asking for that, how we can, is there any improvement on that?
Let's meet afterwards and we can follow up and let's see what we could do to maybe help you out.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Billy Koulatsis.
Billy Cavazos, 34 Donald Place, East Rockaway. Town board members, I've been an employee of the town of Hempstead for over 19 years. I had to take a personal day today to come plead for your assistance. The supervisor's office is using the outside investigators who were hired by this town board in March to provide limited investigatory services to the town attorney's office and report directly to the town attorney's office as personal henchmen to target me for the plain and simple fact that I am a Republican with ties to former Supervisor Anthony Santino. This action is invasive, it's wrong, and most of all, it's harassment. Nearly 30 days ago, I sent a letter via email to Town Attorney Rob, copying the entire town board, detailing the hostile work environment and harassment I had been facing due to this day. Unfortunately, nothing has been done. I have printed copies of the letter for the entire town board, which you have received now. As of June 28, the outside investigators indicated to approximately 10 interviewees that they were specifically instructed by the supervisor's staff to investigate me. They are not even investigating an actual complaint. They are fishing around my personnel file and inquiring of employees in a futile attempt to find something potentially useful in an effort to manufacture charges against me. They have been mostly focusing on false accusations from 2 disgruntled employees as far back as 2012 that were previously investigated and proven to be fabrications. The investigators even interviewed a potential witness about a complaint about cold cuts. Yes, you heard me, cold cuts. Turkey, ham, bologna. Long, ridiculous story short, one officer accidentally unplugged the refrigerator of another officer whose cold cuts were ruined. The latter officer knowingly falsely blamed me. The former officer admitted he did it and that it had nothing to do with me, and yet here the henchmen are discussing it 7 years later at a rate of $125 an hour. The supervisor's henchmen cost the hardworking taxpayers, again, $125 an hour and a 4-hour minimum for surveillance. Multiply that by 10 interviewees, that's thousands of dollars that can be used on other town projects in lieu of targeting me. In addition, I remind the town board that outside investigators are not supposed to take direction or report to the supervisor's office. This flies directly in the face of the contract under which they were hired. I have copies of this resolution with the contract and relevant text highlighted, which I provided to you. As a public safety officer assigned to this complex for the past 4 months, I can tell you from my direct observation that when the outside company investigators come to town hall, they sign it and state they are going to the town attorney's office, but they do not go there. Do you know where they go? The offices of the town supervisor. So much for transparency. So I ask again, whom are these investigators getting their directives from? The town attorney or the town supervisor? This is a rhetorical question, as the supervisor's henchmen walk around actually telling people they interview that they get their orders from the supervisor's office and the supervisor hired them. The supervisor said she was going to weed out harassment, corruption, and cronyism in Hempstead. Now this administration has henchmen targeting and harassing longtime employees who are Republican at the rate of $125 an hour, while it doles out $2.47 million in 24 new jobs to the Democratic Party since January, half of which don't even live in the town of Hempstead. Just last week, the supervisor was quoted in Newsday discussing an RFP for an updated harassment policy in which she said, "We want to make sure we send a very clear message to every employee that harassment of any kind is not going to be tolerated." How can the supervisor say that no employee should be subject to harassment when her administration is targeting and harassing long-time employees like myself, despite promises of how the employees were going to love working for her, no matter what party we were from? I reiterate, there is neither a pending complaint against me nor any allegations, And I have faith that the town board did not intentionally hire an army of henchmen for the supervisor at the price of $125 an hour. The supervisor's office, by virtue of this baseless investigation, is just flagrantly violating New York state law by targeting, harassing, and creating a hostile work environment solely because of my political affiliations. I ask the town board to intercede on my and any other investigations that are clear political targeting to preserve not only the public trust, but the employee trust. And lastly, I want to thank the supervisor for attempting to thwart me speaking today by having me spoken to. Thank you.
I didn't ask anybody to speak to you, Mr. Kouvatsas. I thank you for your comments. I will say that I don't know anything about some cold cut scandal. I've never heard about the cold cut scandal. I wouldn't spend $125 an hour to investigate baloney, but we do take complaints seriously. Mr. Ra, I will refer this matter to you to look into. And in addition, Mr. Kouvatsas, I will say that I won't comment on any details of the investigation, but let's say there are allegations other than cold cuts. And for your protection, I won't elaborate on what those allegations are. But we take all allegations of abuse very seriously in the town of Hempstead. And
How would you
really
know that?
going
They
to-
don't report to you.
That concludes our town board meeting. I hope you have a very, sorry.
I didn't fill out his work, but I was wondering if I could.
Yes, please come forward.
Hi, Bonnie Garone, 17 The Lock, Rockville Center. I didn't come here today planning to speak, but after listening to some of the speakers, I felt it was appropriate. And specifically the animal shelter, which has been a subject of contention for as long as I can remember. And I just want to point out that this board can decide to take a different direction. You don't have to find corruption. You don't have to find criminality. You don't have to find any of those things, but you can decide to take a different direction. And for the first time, I actually feel hopeful that there will be a dialogue among the council members based on what was said here today. But there's one thing that I'm actually confused by, because I hear talk of civil service rules and civil service being an impediment. And I've read the Town of Hempstead Code, and maybe I am mistaken, and if so, Mr. Ra, I'm sure will correct me. But in section 152-2, division established, director, assistant directors, it says, the executive head of such division, and it's talking about the animal shelter, I don't know the formal name in the code, but the executive head of such division shall be the director, who shall be appointed by the town board for a term fixed by the town board or at the pleasure of the town board. Now, if this means what it certainly seems to mean, then there is no, or should not be, civil service defection. This appears to be based on the town code, an appointed position that you, the board, have appointed either for a term certain, in which case someone should research what that term is, or at your pleasure. And my guess is it's at your pleasure. So there doesn't even have to be an allegation of wrongdoing or corruption or criminality and all these things that we hear, and they're all very, very serious. But you can decide, I believe, to just take a different direction and manage the shelter in a different way with some of the guidance that you're gaining from talking to other shelters and places like North Shore Animal League, and just do it differently. You can do that. And, you know, Councilwoman Sweeney, when you said that, you know, Camp Anchor should have no, it shouldn't be political, you're absolutely right. But there are other things that shouldn't be political either. And let's face it, if you want to make it political, there is nobody in this town, or very few normal people. Certainly no voters who want to see people be mean to animals, who want to hear stories, whether they're true or not. They don't want to hear stories of cruelty to animals or owners facing impediments in getting their pets back. This is a win-win for everybody sitting here. So take this, talk to each other. The supervisor made some very good points here. She'd like to sit down and talk with you. So sit down and talk among yourselves and then talk with the supervisor and come up with a solution. The bad publicity alone, the lawsuits alone, are an indication that, you know what, a different direction would probably be good. And I bet you that every one of your constituents would be really happy to hear happy, pleasant stories about the animal shelter, which they pay for with their taxes. So, you know, Town Attorney, am I wrong in what I read?
How are you?
I'm fine, thanks.
It's nice to see you.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
And you?
Without going through all the legal ramifications of the civil service law and appointed positions, he is in a tested civil service position.
I think that's wrong. It's
Is-
possible. No, I believe you. I absolutely, of everyone up, certainly believe you. We've worked together and I believe you. But perhaps it was done incorrectly, because this seems, you know, as clear as a legal sentence can be.
I understand. I won't go any further. We can talk.
But come on, let's fix it. It's good for all of you.
I thank you for your comments. I think they're very thoughtful. I'll be the first to say I'm not an expert on civil service law, so I would defer to both of you to figure that out, how we can proceed legally on this matter. I think there is a genuine desire by the board to move forward in a productive fashion. We had a few intervening events in the last couple of months that prevented helpful dialogue, one being a lawsuit. Now that that has passed us, at least personally, I'm certainly doing the best that I can on my side. There's been a lot of togetherness lately, a lot of good things that have passed, and people might not like some of the ethics, transparency measures. Maybe it's not enough, maybe it's not far enough, and that's all fair comment, but there's a lot of productive efforts to move forward on stuff, and I think that this will be one of them. I'm eager to move forward on this, and I know that our counsel, Rich Regina, has been very responsive to the animal advocates. I thank them for their work, and I think we just keep moving forward productively.
I'm glad. Just fix, talk to her. Just fix.
And Bonnie, you and I have had discussions about this prior. Like I mentioned 10 minutes ago, if we could all sit down and discuss it, happy to do it. But like Erin mentioned, there has been some stuff in the last few months that have...
Yeah, but put that aside. This is separate. This is a win-win for everybody. And see, this is a perfect example of bipartisanship. He and I work together side by side, and we get along just fine. So please, just fix it.
Thank you.
Just
He talked
comment,
over.
because I heard Hattie Patterson mention before about the garden, correct?
About the trees at
The
Howard,
trees,
yes.
yes. Just a very nice note to it. I wear many hats, part of the YAMCA, but I'm also the president of B'nai B'rith in the 5 towns, and in interdenominational context, I'm the assistant professor at St. John's University, so I'm exposed to many things. Once a month, the first Friday, so this coming Friday, it wouldn't happen again, I conduct Jewish services, Friday night services, for the wonderful people inside the facility. And I can tell you, it is more than what I do for them, and they think that I perform God's work. It's what they do to me and for me, really. It is very inspirational to see these people who do not have to be Jewish, by the way, and they come from all floors just to hear my stories, to pray, and to be together, fellowship. Thank you very much, Rick.
Thank you, Professor. Everybody have a happy 4th of July.